Okay, so with Sue back and me back in the States, I looked something up because I said how, and so here's a Joseph Smith new translation of the Bible original manuscripts that BYU printed, okay? In BYU, Brigham Young University. But in the beginning, one thing is nice. This is not really nice for general to study. But one thing is nice. I'm trying to find a good example. It has photographs of the manuscripts. See that?
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. But it's not so nice for just reading. But in fact, I bought my red one that I wanted, except it was the paperback blue edition. But anyways, that's another subject. But in here, in its long intro, actually, it does state that Brigham Young did not like the JST. Okay, so you're not going to be able to read it here, but ooh, that's really fuzzy, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't read that.
You'll have to read it to us.
Well, I typed it up because I hope to put it in a post one day. Maybe I don't know when, but anyways. But I'll read it here. So here's what it states. After the appearance of the newly published Holy Scriptures, aka the new translation, it's had a couple names. Joseph Smith III sent a copy to Orson Pratt of the LDS Church, whom he had known as a youth in Nauvoo, now of Salt Lake City, Utah. Citing an interview conducted years later with Pratt's widow, Joseph wrote, so Joseph Smith III, right? She said, he came home one day, quite elevated over the receipt of the book. Right after supper, they sat down together, he with the inspired version, so the JST, and she with the King James, turning to such passages as he directed, and together they examined it most thoroughly, reading and comparing until a late hour. Finally, at 2 o'clock in the morning, he laid the book aside with a sigh and said, Sarah, these men have done their work honestly. This translation is just as it was left by the prophet Joseph in 1833. I could quickly have detected it had they tampered with or altered what he wrote. I am delighted with it, and I thank God that I have received this copy. And that's in the book Howard, Memoirs of Joseph Smith III, page 33. And then just continuing in the new translation materials, the big book I just showed, the appearance of the RLDS edition of the Holy Scriptures in Utah served to fan a continuing ambivalent fascination among the Latter-day Saints for this work. According to Joseph III, Orson Pratt, fired with enthusiasm, spoke to the new translation positively in preaching in his local ward. Pratt immediately received summary notice to report to President Brigham Young's office. Young demanded Pratt's copy of the book and proceeded to give the elder a severe lecture, ordering him to retract what he had said before his congregation. So the next Sabbath, poor Elder Orson Pratt, the ablest defender of Mormonism that had ever crossed the plains to the west, had to go upon the stand and publicly retract his words. And that's from Howard's Memoirs of President Joseph Smith III, page 33. On this issue, like some others, lines of disagreement were formed between LDS and RLDS. And then that's the 2 pages that came from the new translation materials. So Brigham Young told Orson Pratt to retract his positive statements about the new translation. Now, when I wrote that down here, I remembered I had some other stuff that I forgot about. And so, since this actually has a link, I'll share it so other people can go see it. This is also from an LDS site. Okay. One was from BYU, something they published, and this here is from LDS Clear.
Doctrine.
Okay. Further, before his death, Joseph had spoken with Brigham Young about going through the translation of the scriptures again, perfecting upon points of doctrine which Yahweh had restrained him from giving in plainness and the fullness of time which we write, which was February 2nd, 1833. Now, I don't believe that quote is authentic, because this is Brigham Young claiming that Joseph Smith's saying that God told him to hold something back and then now to put it back in. So I think this, in my honest opinion, and that's in the article, that's Brigham Young leaving it out so that way he could say that polygamy was supposed to be added in, because it wasn't at first, but then it was supposed to be added later. Okay. But here's the really interesting part. After its publication, copies were sent west to all of Utah County's general authorities. It was variously received. Orson Pratt was in ecstasy and alleged to stay up all night reading it. He even preached conference sermons from it. Brigham Young, on the other hand, felt little good could come from the Josephites. So, the one with the RLDS church. As he called those who did not come west, the Mormons in Utah were called the Brighamites. And he called upon all members of the Utah church who had copies to burn them. Brigham Young told the Brighamites to burn the JSTs, which back then they were called the Holy Scriptures, and then later they're inspired, and then later JST with the portions that the LDS Church did put in, which is about 10% of what's actually there, FYI. But anyways, Brigham Young further canceled Orson Pratt never to quote from it again. Another thing that shows that Brigham Young didn't like it. Thus, in the days of Brigham Young, it was anathema to even own a copy of Joseph's Bible.
That's an anathema.
Anathema. Sorry. It was an anathema to even own a copy of Joseph's Bible. Orson Pratt outlived Brigham Young, who died in 1877, and in 1878, right after, probably as soon as they could, the new church president, John Taylor, asked Orson Pratt to ready a new edition of the Pearl of Great Price. Orson included in this new edition Genesis 1, verse 1 through chapter 6, verse 13, quoted verbatim from the reorganized publication. And these writings were entitled Selections from the Book of Moses. This title clearly imposes that Moses wrote more than is contained therein. And also included in this 1870 edition of the Pearl of Great Price was the revised Matthew 23, verse 39 through Matthew 24, which we now refer as the Joseph Smith Matthew. Since the time of Brigham Young, Joseph's inspired revision has gradually increased in favor with the church. Our present new edition of the Bible, published in 1979, contains about 690 of the 340 corrections.
2,410.
Yeah, there's actually about 6,000, so that number's off. And then also in the 2013 edition, they took a whole bunch out. Anyways, we now refer to these revised materials as the JST, or the Joseph Smith translation. That part of the JST, now regarded as Canaanite scriptures, includes Genesis 1 through Genesis 6:13, Matthew 23:39 through Matthew 24, and those 690 verses contained in our 1979 edition of the Bible. So
Now
anyway.
the issue, the other thing about this, the reason why they start pulling back away from the JST is because the JST openly condemns. Is because the doctrines presented in the JST Bible condemn the church.
Yeah, and I mean, tithing is a big one, which we need to go over one day, and just about a lot of things. A lot of things that Brigham Young claimed Joseph Smith taught him in private, the JST actually condemns. And in fact, if we ever get to do the recording on DNC 128, one of the verses or things that's claimed in there actually contradicts a JST. I don't remember which verse, but we go, it's one about the Hebrews. But anyways, just going off rough memory. So the JST condemns a lot in the LDS Church, and that's why, I mean, they only use around 10% of it. But anyways, but you can see from these two quotes, both published from Brighamites, Brigham Young did not like the JST. So
Well,
what do you do with that?
neither does mainstream Christianity. Mainstream Christianity does not like the inspired version either.
No, but that one's a slightly different situation, though.
Different reason for it.
Yeah. Well, I think it also kind of condemns some of their doctrines also, but it's sad to see someone who claims to be the one who took care of the church after Joseph Smith died, and that a lot of people call as a prophet, hated what God commanded Joseph Smith to do. In fact, I mean, I don't have the words, but here's DNC sections that were and verses where Yahweh is talking to Joseph Smith about the DNC. So, and there's quite a few of them. It was commanded. And I was rereading the intro on this. One thing is kind of interesting. A lot of the sections of the DNC came after the JSTs. So the JST opened Joseph Smith's mind, that then he asked questions and got more insights on.
Yeah, the inspired version contains the key. The inspired version of the Bible contains the key to much of the Doctrine and Covenants.
Exactly. And I'll just say this: it's not correlated with. Oh no, I'm forgetting that commentary right now. I have it. The Adams. It's not correlated with Adam Clarke's commentary like some people claim. Not on some big sections I've looked at. Now, I'll be honest, I haven't looked at everything, but I've looked at some major ones where lots of changes were done, and it does not correlate at all. Okay. And that's the Adam Clarke. So, but anyway.
Who is Adam Clarke?
So he was a guy that put out a commentary. And let's see if I can I know how I can find it quicker. So it would help if there we go. So I'll put this in the chat. So this is a chiasmus that Ben and I did together live. But then I did a little commentary on it, but I point to where you can go get Adam Clarke commentary here. And so you can go check it sections, and I've checked some. They don't correlate with what Joseph Smith did. But he did a commentary, and it was around the time of Joseph Smith. And people claim that Joseph Smith did the JST by looking at Adam Clarke's commentary, and not that I can see. And so there's a scholar out there that's behind a paywall, so I haven't read it, that states because he uses some of the same phrases that Adam Clarke does, that he's getting everything from Adam Clarke. And it's far from that. But anyways, I talk a little bit in this post if you want. And I show the ones that relate to this, and I think maybe even Matthew 20. Oh yeah, I talk about Matthew 24, how they're not correlated with each other like people claim. Okay, so they're quite a bit different. So I put the links there. You can look at them later. But anyways, so I think with that, unless you have anybody has any comments on that, oh, okay. So I think next we're planning on doing Jacob 5, right?
Mhm.
That is what the lot slash coin toss got.
That's what the coin toss got us.
Now I'm gonna do.
And we had left off at verse 20.
Was it 20? Okay.
Yep.
Well, maybe we start with 19, just looking at the because of the Skousen space there.
Yeah.
No. Anyways, I think it said about 20, but anyways, we can just start there. Or we start, but maybe just 19. So
Yeah, 19 will work. Yeah.
this will be fun, kind of going at it cold.
Yeah, and this is yeah, the Jacob 5 is not just your garden variety allegory.
No, it's prophecy.
It's full on prophecy.
Yeah. I remember I have one where it talks about some of the end. I'll put it in the notes. And one about the mighty and strong one, even, right?
Yes, there's actually a fair bit about the mighty and strong one later on at the end of chapter 5.
Yeah, at the end in like the 60s, 70s.
Mhm.
I'll put it in later. I don't want to try to find the link. So that might be interesting for people to find. And then also I'll put a link to 1 through 18, 19, 20 that we did before in the notes if you want to go look.
Yeah.
But I think just one thing to keep in mind, it's prophecy, and I kind of remember things that pop in my head. Roots are the fathers, or the promises with the fathers, or Torah.
Mm-hmm.
Different branches are different groups.
Yep.
The fruit is our works. Well, the master is a representation of the Father. The servant is a representation of the Son. Because the master and the servant are through all this history. And the only one that goes through history like this is the Father and the Son, right? Because like in near the end, probably around 50s, maybe it starts talking about the Jaredites and the Lehites, the Nephites and the Lamanites and the Gentiles.
It starts talking about the and it also starts talking about other servants, calling other servants into the vineyard.
Right. Now near the end, just like what I see goes along with prophecy, that the mighty and strong one isn't going to do everything on himself, right? He's going to have a lot of helpers. So I think it goes along with that. But anyways, I guess maybe I can start with 19 and 20.
Yeah, sure.
And it came to pass that the Lord of the vineyard said unto the servant, Come, let us go to the nethermost part of the vineyard. And behold, if the natural branches of the tree hath not brought forth much fruit also, that I may lay up the fruit thereof against the season unto my own self. So, I think there's a couple things that we could get out of that. One, there's records out there, and so the fruit could be the records that that these people made. That 2 Nephi 29 talks about that we'll get later.
Fruit
That's a
against,
possibility.
but it talks about fruit against the season. That I may
That's
lay up
true.
the fruit thereof against the season unto mine own self. And now the season that he's talking about is the season of judgment. So the fruit that he's talking about here has to be related to the judgment.
That's an interesting thought. I can go with that. I would wonder if that's maybe being a little too inclusive or exclusive on it, but I can definitely see that as a very good possibility. Because
Yeah,
I do
I
think,
mean, So what we're talking about is that which the fruit is what he's trying to lay up against the season, against the time of judgment. He's trying, what he wants is people who will pass the judgment and receive the good fire and not the bad fire.
Yeah, I in general I definitely do agree with that, because there is a burning later down.
So in terms of this, I have a tendency to believe that the fruit is actually people and souls saved.
Yeah, it's our works that they've done, and then thus they've endured to the end, and thus are saved, right? As Alma the Younger states in Alma 29, I believe, right? He says I'm saved. I think it's that chapter, but anyways.
Right. And the thing is that, as we've talked about before, salvation comes through Christ, and we are rewarded for our works upon being saved.
Correct.
Because until we are saved, no amount of works will do us any good.
Right, because just going off of DNC 76, right? If you have not accepted Yeshua, you are a son of perdition.
Yep.
And there's nothing you do to get saved, because we're only saved through him, because we all have sinned except for him.
So the fruit is saved souls. The good fruit is saved souls that have been rewarded. That's how
for the most part I go with that. I do wonder if some of the fruit could be records that come forth later, but I don't know for sure.
And on that level, we will be judged from the books.
Right.
We will be judged from the records. So there's something to be said for that.
Right. I was thinking more along the lines of just giving it to other people to convert them. But yes, at Judgment Day we will be judged by what's written in the books. But I think that's more the
reason why I get stuck on that is because so many times in these next two verses in 19 and 20, it talks about against the season.
But the season is the holidays, the holy days. The holy days use the same word as the season. The word translated to
now that's an interesting thought, right there.
Well, I think they go together, because the great and dreadful day is going to happen Tabernacles, or either Tabernacles or Day of Atonement. There's kind of because Day of Atonement more is about judgment, so it might be more happening then, actually. Just
and when we lay up fruit in the word of wisdom, we're supposed to eat the fruit in the season thereof.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So in the holy day period where that fruit is, that's the day we eat it, right?
So I do think in the word of wisdom that when it says in the season of thereof, I think that's more going to the point where it's ripe, because in Hebrew tradition they will take barley and wheat and store it under their floor for up to 3 years. So I see something a little different because of what I know what the Hebrews do.
But that's herbs. I mean, that's not herbs. That's or fruit.
That's a fruit. That's a harvest. In fact,
that's the harvest. Yeah, but that's the grain, the wheat that is the staff of life.
I can see where Stephen's talking more along the lines of general fruit harvests, and you're talking specifically fruit.
Well, just because those are the words used.
Well, I think barley is part of the fruit, actually. And the main harvests in the scriptures are the barley harvest, the wheat harvests, and the grape harvests in the scriptures. So can we pause just for 1 minute?
Yeah, sure.
If I can find the button.
I'm just thinking. So the
Okay.
specific. So as we were talking about fruit, I was thinking, what is the specific fruit that is being referred to in this chapter? And he's talking about an olive tree, and so the specific fruit is olives, and so maybe is that important? I'm going to pause that. I'm going to posit that question, Sue.
Okay, so I have a question, and that is there one of the holy days that the olive is used for?
The olives is used for multiple of the.
The olives were used as part of the offerings for the holy days, all holy days.
Oh yeah,
A hint of oil, a hint of olive oil.
Yeah, and that's after crushing the olive. And I just off the top of my head, I don't know of a high holiday that specifically talks about harvesting of the olives, to be honest.
Because is it first fruits has to deal with the barley harvest. Shavuot or Pentecost has to do with the wheat harvest. And also there's the new wine was made at Pentecost as well.
Yeah, because it was part of the. So grapes grapes start at Pentecost and end with tabernacles, because grapes are kind of some of both. Primarily tabernacles, but a little bit of Shavuot. But here olive trees ready to heart. Not sure. Okay. Do you know when olives
Harvest olives in the late summer or fall by picking them by hand. Oh, so we're looking at the fall feasts here.
Well, late summer.
That could be Shavuot.
That could be Shavuot depending on specifics, right?
Yeah.
Shavuot is actually a summer feast, despite what some people say. In fact, just on that point, by my calculations, let me get my app up so I don't give you the wrong day. Shavuot
two counts,
is
7
July
Sabbaths,
16th. Yeah,
July 16th. 2 counts, 7 Sabbaths, and then 60 days, or then 50
days.
50 days.
Sorry, Pentecost is 50. Silly.
Yeah, 50. I misspoke.
I know. I'm just heckling you a little bit.
Yeah,
I do that sometimes too. Anyways,
Yeah.
there's 2 counts, not just one. In fact, if you just do 1 count, you do it before they even get to Mount Sinai. But anyways, that's a whole nother subject.
Pick olives when they're green, yellow, green, rosy brown, or black. Green olives tend to be more intense and bitter, while darker olives are more mild. Pit your olives and place them in an airtight container. Soak them in a salt brine for 1 week. Taste them and repeat with fresh brine until they are at your desired flavor. So, but the main
interesting
thing is,
late summer, that's going to go with Pentecost, Shavuot, which goes
fall
along
is the
with
fall
what they
feast.
represent, because they represent, especially the olive oil represents the law and the Holy Ghost and the Spirit, right?
The anointing of the Holy Ghost is what the olive oil represents.
Right.
The anointing of the Holy Ghost.
Which goes along with the season that they're getting harvested. So
that's an interesting, that does provide an interesting look at what exactly the fruits are.
All right, so hold on, let's pause again. Sorry, guys.
Oh, did somebody else come?
Yeah. I gotta, okay. So I think when we left, we were talking about how the tree here in Jacob 5, or trees, because there's multiple of them, right? Are actually olive trees, right?
Yeah.
And we looked at when they're harvested, which goes along with Shavuot, Pentecost, which goes along with oil, and the Holy Spirit and Torah, right?
Yeah.
Which actually, it's interesting. It goes along with the fruits, because I do believe, the most important part of the fruit that's being put out here is our works according to Torah, right? So,
Yep.
I do want
After the profession of belief.
right, right.
Because the works prior to the confession of Christ, and the laying aside of our sins completely, along with the profession of Christ and the need for his atonement, they don't get us very far.
Right. Except for one exception, little children, right, who
Right.
are not accountable. But other than that, exactly. Right.
Yep.
But I just want to throw out the little children exception.
Yeah.
But other than that, yes, it's according, we're saved by grace.
And I find, and I think that when he's talking about little children, he's talking about the mind, also the capacity of the individual.
Oh, right. Yes.
Because I mean, I have a son who will probably,
he's a little child.
Yes, he's a little child.
He's a little child in a bigger body.
Yep.
But that's a unique situation. But yes.
And so you have to, and when you consider a little child, I don't think you're just talking about age.
No, it's
mental capacity.
Mental capacity. You're right, and that's good to bring that out.
So,
right. Yeah. Anyways, the fruits that they're storing up, I do think mostly points to our works. And this is maybe where something I need to study more later on, but I do wonder if it might point to some of the records, but maybe I'm reading too much in this case, right?
Mm-hmm. I think that the words against the season actually really are very informative for us in terms of the prophetic and allegorical aspects of this.
Right, and that makes some sense to me. It's just something I'll have to maybe study out more later if I want to focus on that instead of some of the other things I'm trying to do. Right?
Yeah.
But that is a good point, though.
If you do look into it, you may find that it actually helps you with some of the other things that you're trying to do.
Sure. Well,
that's just one of those that's just one of those things that just whenever you get a chance, just take a look at it.
Right. Well, it's not like I spend most of my free time studying, especially when I don't have kids to take with me right now, because they're not with me right now, sadly. But anyways,
yeah,
hopefully soon. But yeah. Anyways, okay, so back to 20.
Back to 20. Yes.
And it came to pass that they went forth whither the master of the vineyard had hid the natural branches of the tree. So, in this case, I don't know what this represents in history. I would speculate that it is something in history, though, right? Because I know
we're talking about some kind of scattering.
Yes, it was some type of scattering that happened, and that has happened multiple times. I don't know what one this one refers to myself. I know
it could be the scatter. It could be the scattering around. It could be the scattering around Noah.
Maybe this is where we would have to try to correlate the various scatterings to various attributes that happened during those times periods. I have not done that through all of this one. The only ones that I've done myself are the Jaredites, the Lehites, the Nephites, Lamanites, and the Gentiles area, which are more in the 60 verses. 60.
Yeah, the later verses.
Right, because that one I have a little more interest in figuring that one out. I hear you. But I do think that this one's going to point to something in history. I just don't know which one it is.
But most importantly to me, it's something that connects to all of the rest of the scatterings. All of these are all connected. Because it's always going back to the natural branches of the tree, the same natural branches he scattered.
Well, there's multiple times he does natural branches, but then also later when it actually comes back to the Gentiles, when it goes to the time of Christ's life, right? Around the 50s, 60s, 70s, it's wild branches that bring forth natural fruit.
Right.
And so
Right.
it's not just
It's
there's
also grafting in wild branches later on. But
right. And that's
here what
you know,
we're seeing is the scattering. Actually, I think we saw some grafting in of wild branches here.
Did we?
And that's what preserved the roots. And that's what preserved the roots.
I don't remember in this case, and it's been a while since we.
Yes, it is. And it came to pass that the Lord of the vineyard looked and beheld the tree in the which the wild olive branches had been grafted. This is verse 17.
Oh, okay.
And it had sprang forth and began to bear fruit, and he beheld that it was good, and the fruit was like unto the natural fruit. And he said unto the servant, behold the branches of the wild tree, which have taken hold of the moisture of the root thereof. So this is how we know that the root is Torah, because those who graft into it take on its nature.
Now, one thing I just remembered that you brought up one time when we read the blessings of Joseph, Manasseh, and Ephraim, I think it was that recording you mentioned how maybe Joseph's wife was one of those graftings, right?
Yeah, because
I don't know if it was that one, but
she's actually a daughter of Egypt.
Right.
She's actually a descendant of Canaan, the son of Ham.
One time I thought I came around some genealogy. She may also be part of Abraham's line, but I don't remember. It's vague memory. So
yeah,
but
I mean, just on the face, I'm just talking about on the face of it, prima facie evidence.
Well, right, but then we all came from Adam, so why is there even any grafting? But I think it's just more that certain groups have been more natural than others, right?
Right.
Israel has had their hard times, but overall, I think they have been better than the rest of the world, right?
Right. What I do think is this, is that while blood, I don't think that blood is what I don't think is that blood is that the blood that you are, the blood that runs in your veins is the primary contributor as to whether or not you're good fruit. That's one of the lessons that we learn from the parable of the olive tree.
Oh, right. Well, in fact, there's quite a few times the natural branches brought forth wild fruit, right? Did someone want to say something?
No. By the way, I'm back, but yeah.
Okay.
Had a kind of a word, but sorry, go ahead. No, I was clear.
Okay. But there was a lot of times where the natural branches brought forth wild fruit, right?
Right.
So it's not the bloodline. It's
so
your actions.
Yeah. Well, and the branches themselves may be the bloodline, but the fruit is not.
Exactly, because there's the wild branches that brought forth the natural fruit, right?
Yeah. So yeah, the branches themselves may be representative of bloodlines, but the fruit is not.
Right.
So where do the Jesuits come in? Are they the line of Cain or what?
Jesuits? So
yeah.
Jesuits are a fraction of the Catholic Church that started when the Protestants started, and their goal is to get rid of the Protestants. In fact,
technically, Jesuits are simply an offshoot of Jesuits are an offshoot of the Knights Templar and the Priory of Sion.
Yeah, but they're part of the Catholic Church.
They are part of the Catholic Church, but so were the Knights Templar until they weren't.
Yeah, that's an interesting. That's true. But I talk about them a little bit in my Notre Dame commentary, and where they originally did their oath, the first time they did the oath was in the basement of Notre Dame.
And I should like to point out that many of the people who were members of the Priory of Sion were high-ranking people in the Catholic Church.
Yes. But I remember a couple of years ago, Notre Dame had a big fire, right? And then all of a sudden, all this money came to rescue it. Well, that came from the Jesuits, mostly, if you ask me.
Yeah.
They know what that building is.
The public arm of the more public arm of the Jesuits right now, in terms of secular matters, would be known as the Freemasons.
Yeah, the Freemasons are manipulated by the Jesuits.
Okay.
And so was Brigham Young. I have a couple quotes.
Yeah, that's
the
that came in
Jesuits.
infiltrated the church.
Yeah, and so the Jesuits are in terms of this parable, the Jesuits are wild fruit.
Right. They if they're anywhere in here, it could be where the Gentiles then turn wild, right?
Mm-hmm.
Part of that part, because they I don't remember the exact year off the top of my head. Was it 14 or 1500, something like that, around the time of Martin Luther? But that's when they kind of started.
Well, that's when they ostensibly started. We'll just
because they were always kind of there, right?
Just like the Templars ostensibly started around around a certain time, but they were there's actually evidence of their existence a couple of hundred years earlier.
Yeah. I guess it's more officially because the Jesuit arm of the Catholic Church also helps keep more of the old pagan ways alive also. And I mean, and so that's been around for a long time, but I think the more organization of the white pope, the black pope, happened more later, right?
Some
of that history is kind of like messy and maybe not well defined.
It's really messy. And this particular parable, the parable of the vineyard here in Jacob 5, is about the workings of God's kingdom as opposed to the workings of the devil's.
Well, right, but if the Jesuits in there, it'd be around where it's talking about the Jesuits. I mean the Gentiles, because the Jesuits are the Gentiles, right?
Right.
The Gentiles.
Yeah.
And they're probably a good part of why they went wicked or wild fruit, right?
And at this point, all of the fruit is good fruit from that tree.
Right, and that comes way later because that's after the death of Christ. Which even this kind of goes with the Mazzaroth a little bit. It was the sea beast that happened after the death of Christ and the Mazzaroth.
And it's also in accordance with Joseph Smith's last dream, the sea beast rising up, taking control of the church.
Which I highly recommend my commentary on that, but I might be a little biased.
Yeah, not at all.
I'm glad you got to watch that.
Yeah, I need to maybe I should just publish that part of that post because that part's pretty much done. But anyways. But yeah, if the Jesuits fit in here, it'd be the time of the Gentiles that's later on near the end.
Right. But here we are. We're trying to fit. I don't know that we necessarily need to know exactly where all these branches or who all these branches are necessarily to get a full picture and to get a fuller picture of what's going on.
I think it would be helpful to know.
Yeah, it would be.
But I do think we can still get things out of it. But
why don't we just percolate? Why don't we just think about it as we go through the parable? Because this first place will come up again, as will the second and third. It'll all come
okay. So I think didn't finish 20, right?
No, we did. We haven't. Hey, we have yet to finish 20.
Yeah. Well, that's fine. We're discussing good things, so it's fine.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing. I'm just saying. We have yet to finish 20.
I'm going to start here. Behold these, and he beheld the first, and that it brought forth much fruit, and he beheld also that it was good. And he saith unto the servant, Take of the fruit thereof, and lay it up against the season, that I may preserve it unto mine own self. For behold, saith he, this long time have I nourished it, and hath brought it forth much fruit.
Okay.
So, Zach, you want to read 21?
Sure. And came to pass that the servant saith to his master, How camest thou hither to plant this tree or this branch of the tree? For behold, it was the poorest spot in all the land of thy vineyard.
Okay. We know that it was planted in a poor spot of ground. Just
So,
note of that.
poorest spot. So, the poorest spot comes into play later in the end of it also, right?
So yeah, this is why I say these plantings actually connect to each other.
Right. So, but I'm trying to remember if the Jaredites were the poorest though, because
Well,
the
the
Jaredites go
piece
over
of
a long
land-
period of time, right?
Yeah, but the piece of land is the same land that just a few verses down is going to be talking. They're going to be talking about how this branch is planted in the choice land, and some of it's brought forth good and some of it's brought forth bad. Just a few verses down.
Right. So I'm just. So here, let me just show my screen that I'm looking at, and just trying to remember some things, because if people don't know, we pretty much do these things cold every week, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
I'll stop share, reshare. This is a photocopy of a 1907 Book of Mormon.
Okay.
Oh, actually, and this is in a 1900 Book of Mormon that I personally have also. I could show it if you guys want. I could pause and show it to you, and it has these also, because I've looked. But anyways, this is a lot more convenient to do. But so the green underlines are the Nephites. So this one right here.
Uh-huh.
The purple is just America. The red are the Jaredites that cumbered this spot of ground. And the blue are the Nephites, and the yellow are the Lamanites. Now, not to brag, but I figured it out before I saw this. It's just kind of the description, but anyways. But it is kind of cool to see in an older version of the Book of Mormon, in the footnotes showing that, right?
Right.
Now, this doesn't necessarily mean anything, but I do think the older the footnotes, the more likely it went along with what something Joseph Smith said. Okay.
That's quite possible.
I haven't tried to go look up Joseph Smith's words on this specifically.
But yeah,
it would
Don't
be
really trust
interesting.
the footnotes now, do you?
They're not in the footnotes now in today's, but we can.
that would make it far too easy to understand.
Yeah, so we can just go look. I'll show you. So 543. So we'll just go into the 2003 edition.
Yeah.
Jacob 5, and that was 40.
40. Yeah.
Okay, so A.
Just a whole bunch of
Let's just go into another verse, verse 25. It doesn't say what we just saw, right? That it was
clearly is not as informative.
right. So they only have something in good spot. They don't have anything on branch, which used to point to the Nephites. The good spot of ground used to point to America. So let's go to 44. Cumbered. So in the 1907, that pointed to the Jaredites. Let's see what this says. And if they perish, it be like unto the Jaredites. Well,
Yeah, it does kind of point it there.
kind of. They could just say Jaredites if it was
Right.
clear. So that one they might have kept. So verse 45.
A
This
part
part
thereof.
thereof used to point to the Nephites. Let's see. Appeared on the olive tree. Yeah, okay, so it's really not, let's see, but this is pointing to a commentary that off of this allegory, right?
Well, it's a commentary by Nephi on his vision. And on the vision of Lehi, and on the question,
Well,
answering
look
questions
at,
that his
behold,
brother.
I found you the house of Israel is compared unto an olive tree.
Yes, but he's actually answering questions by his brother by his brothers in First Nephi 15. That's what he's doing. It's
Well,
not related to this particularly, necessarily.
mm,
Though it is related by the fact that it's compared onto an olive tree. But
well, if I remember, we could read through it, but I think there's a lot of correlations. So
there are correlations. I'm not arguing that. I'm just saying that historically this is older than that. He probably would have known about it to be able to use it for his commentary.
right. I'm just saying he could be putting it into his commentary because he knew about it.
Yeah. Okay, I get it.
Because I mean, after how many correlations is it actual by purpose?
Right, exactly. Yeah, you got a point.
But I'm just trying to remember if here. So here it's talking about later the Gentiles. I'm trying to see if it mentions Nephite specifically here, and
it's just a remnant of our seed is what is mentioned.
yeah, so I think that's a bad reference. So I think they've got rid of that one.
Though I think that First Nephi 15 might have something to say about Jacob 5.
Oh, it does, because I think it adds some commentary to it. But we're just looking at the notes. So 45, they don't have the yellow one that was for the Lamanites.
No.
And that was it. So they took most of it out. And the little bit that still is there, they
Muddied up.
Not so obvious, right?
It muddied it up a lot.
But so cumbered this spot of land or this spot of ground. I actually, if it's okay, I'm just curious if we look at the choice. Let's look at choice, see how often it's used. I spelt it right.
Jacob 5.
Yay.
Yeah, so
Is that the first place it's used?
no, so
Oh,
it's actually the only spot. So did I remember the word? Let me go back to 20.
In
21?
25, it's good spot. It's a good spot.
Good spot. Okay, sorry. Well, good. That's different than choice, right?
Yeah.
So good is in 17. Well, 20, but I think that's
Usually good is in reference to the fruit, though in verse 25 it's in reference to the spot of ground.
Am I remembering?
And I'm wondering if some of this has to do with the parable of the sower.
Well, I think there's some connections to it because of the good fruit and the bad fruit, but I am inclined to think this is more just the long lines history of Yahweh's dealings with us.
Yeah.
than the kingdoms. Though I can see just off the top of my head, just thinking out loud, there's the celestial in here. There's gonna be also sons of perditions because of the burning. Right? Because there's burning at the end. Well, let's see if I'm remembering correctly.
Well, because
Yeah, there's burnings, right? So that's gonna be son of perditions, right?
I mean, there's also different spots of ground, Poor
Right,
spot,
but
poor
those
spot.
different spots of grounds do have celestial with them at times, right?
Right, that's true.
So
Yeah, so it's definitely not a perfect fit, but but I do think that the parable of the sower can give us some informing on this.
sure, and I'm just trying to think. I can see things that are celestial in here, and I can see things that are sons of perditions. Off the top of my head, I don't know if anything that would be terrestrial or telestial off the top of my head, but
Yeah, because
reading this cold.
everything it seems to be either good fruit or wild fruit. It's not really a gradation. It
Yeah.
doesn't gradate the good fruit.
Not that I recall. So I'm somewhat inclined to be less thinking it's along those lines. And I don't recall anything we're talking about different grades of the good fruit, to be honest. But
Yeah.
maybe
No,
we can keep it in mind as we read through it.
Yeah, but I think that might be a little too much.
So
That might be me thinking. That might be me overthinking things.
I do it too, right? Because like maybe with the records, that one might be overthinking.
Yeah.
With the fire. But we want
Or
what was I supposed
or rather trying to be too broad.
Sure.
Painting with too big a brush. When I need a corner brush, I'm painting with a wall brush.
Oh no, I was wanted to find the porous. That's right. Not so. Let's go search pour. So, porous is
There's poor and poorer, and it's in these
Oh.
next. It's in 22 and 23.
so 21's poor, 22's poor, 23's poor. Oh, just those three. So that's not going to be related to.
You're right,
Yeah.
because it's nowhere for there's none of that further down.
No, it's just those three. So,
Interesting.
I'm inclined to think that the foreground has nothing to do with the New World.
No.
At least right now.
And given and so the poor spot of ground, wherefore I said unto thee, I have nourished it this long time. Okay, sorry. This is the poorest spot in all the land of thy vineyard, and the Lord of the vineyard said unto him, counsel me not. I knew that it was a poor spot of ground. Wherefore I said unto thee, I have nourished it this long time, and thou beholdest that it hath brought forth much fruit. So there is a correlation between poor and how much and the nourishment
Sure.
it receives.
And this is early enough. Maybe this is Israel before it blossoms, right?
Right.
Maybe. Maybe. Just thinking out loud.
Right. No, yeah, maybe that could be.
I don't know. I maybe just me trying to figure out some of the more historical aspects of it. But anyways. But I think you're at 22, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So Zach, you want to read 23?
Yeah.
So in fact, just thinking out loud, initially, if my idea is right, when Abraham was given the land, it was primarily filled with Canaanites, would have made it poor, right?
You're right. That's interesting.
Just throwing out an idea, because I I haven't looked into a lot of the historical part in the first part. I've looked into more in the latter part, as in like I showed right there, and then also I did one about the mighty and strong one that's done in here later also. But
Yeah.
anyways, go ahead, Zach.
23.
And it came to pass that the Lord of the vineyard saith to his servant, Look hither, behold, I have planted another branch of the tree also. And thou knowest that the spot of ground was poorer than the first. But behold the tree, I have nourished it this long time, and it hath brought forth much fruit. Therefore gather it and lay it up against the season, that I may preserve it unto mine own self.
So the thing that we have to bear in mind is that the branches themselves do represent branches of the house of Israel.
Yeah, and so one thing, just going with my current idea what this one could be, the poorer one could be Lot with Sodom and Gomorrah, maybe.
Well, but he says, look at the tree, as if he's proud of it.
I think Lot did what he was supposed to, right?
Right.
The daughter's not so much, right?
But I think that's less than, but I still think that's a less than perfect.
Sure. Well, and it might not be that. I'm just.
It may be that this, and so, but the point is, what we can get from this, even without knowing everything about it, is that God has split the tree of Israel multiple times and planted it sometimes in desirable lands choice above all other lands, and sometimes in lands poor, not so desirable.
Right.
Some land, there are some who would consider the northlands of the earth, some of those lands that are not as desirable. There are those who would consider Africa and other places to be lands that are not as desirable. But in every instance where God has nourished, in this up to this point where God has nourished, they have brought forth good fruit. What God has nourished has brought forth good fruit up to this point in the parable.
Well, there's one time there were some that brought wild fruit already.
Yeah, but that's right at the very beginning where.
Right. So the question is, did he nourish it? And that's.
We may need to look back at that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, he did. I will prune it and dig about it and nourish it. Okay. The olive tree, that is the house of Israel, nourished in his vineyard, and it grew and it waxed old and it began to decay. So this is actually dealing with the scatterings of the house of Israel.
Right. But I think we just read that he did nourish it before it went wild.
Right. And it waxed old and began to decay. You can actually relate this back to the tree, to the analogy given in Isaiah of the stump of David, from which the stump of Jesse, from which grows the branch of Jesse.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. That's an interesting thought. I haven't thought about that before.
And then and from there we gain what I gain from this is that all of this was written prophetically of a time that had not occurred up to that point.
Right.
So I don't think so at the time that
well, we don't know when Zenos was alive, though.
We don't know when he was alive, but we do know, due to the relationships between this and Isaiah's tree of David, the
Well,
decaying tree. God's trying to save the fruit of the tree. The facts of the matter are the scattering of Israel was to save the fruit.
We do know Zenas was pre-Jeremiah.
yes.
Just saying.
Yes, but how early he was in the time that Israel was in the land of Israel, we do not know.
You're right. But you do have an idea for when he wasn't. I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah. Sure. We have 600 BC and before, right?
Yeah,
Even some more before that, probably.
technically, probably 575 BC and before.
Well, I do think
Actually, yeah, 600. Yeah, you're right, 600 BC and before.
yeah, because the brass plates do have some writings from Jeremiah, right?
That's true.
But we don't know exactly the timing on those, but I would kind of put that closer to 600 though.
Yeah.
But anyways, but we don't know too much about Zenas because
But what we do know is, but what I do know is that unless he was writing really late, unless he was right up on the time of Jeremiah, all scattering of Israel was outside of the scattering into two kingdoms would have been a future event. Unless he was right at the time of Isaiah.
right, and
All scatterings would have been in a future event. Because Israel was scattered, they were still their own united kingdom until the time of Isaiah. They were scattered during Isaiah's prophetic ministry.
That we're aware of, because even though, as we're told in the with the Nephites, the Israel didn't really know about the Nephites scattering out, right? Even in the Book of Mormon tells us
That's
that.
true. That's true.
And in fact,
The Lord might have.
So
what you're saying is that the Lord might have led people out before the main scattering, and that makes sense. That would make sense.
Because the Book of Mormon is an example of that, right?
Right. That would make sense. That the Lord
and when Zenas was alive, we don't know how much of this would have been history and how much of it was prophecy.
And especially given the fact that the scattering is to preserve fruit unto himself. He would be leading righteous people away, righteous branches into these poor lands.
Now, there are, along those lines of various scatterings, there are theories out there that when Moses left Egypt, some Israelites went up to Greece. I don't know how true it is. I've seen some documentaries on it that seem some convincing, but I don't have a personal feeling one way or the other, to be honest. But the Greek
way of thought is what frames the mystery religion. So I'm not so sure of that.
There's some mosaics that are some pretty interesting. But anyways, I don't know for sure one way or the other. But just because you're with the Greeks doesn't mean you're thinking like the Greeks, right?
That's true.
Anyways, because we're supposed to be in the world and not of the world.
You've got a point.
And
that's what it means to be the good fruit.
Yeah.
The good fruit in poor ground.
Yeah. Well, anyways, so I'm not sure what to think of the poor ground right now, but
I think
fun to speculate.
I think that this is just talking about various scatterings right now.
Oh yeah. This is right. And
this is what I see. This is what I see is just the Lord scattering away people to raise up righteous fruit to raise up righteous seed, just like it talks about in Jacob chapter 2.
Right. And I agree with that. I'm just maybe trying to spend a little too much time trying to figure out which one.
Yeah, I don't think that I don't know that we're going to. At
Yeah,
least
that's fine.
At least not in a night.
Yeah, I don't know. No, not tonight. But anyway,
Yeah.
okay. So we should probably do 24.
I think I think it's best to move on at this point.
Yeah, you want to read some, Kesley?
Sure. And it came to pass that the Lord of the vineyard said again unto his servant, Look hither, and behold another branch also, which I have planted. Behold, that I have nourished it also, and it hath brought forth fruit.
Okay.
Yeah,
He's not talking about whether the fruit's good or bad here. So let's, in order to get that detail, you've got to read another verse.
Yeah, so let's do 25.
And he said unto the servant, Look hither, and behold the last. Behold, this have I planted in a good spot of ground. And
Well, wait a minute. Is 25 actually a different branch from 24?
The last, I think, is the one that you just did. So I think it's referring to 24 off my inclination right now, but
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. I mean, it's a good way to look at it. Keeps me from overthinking.
Okay, go ahead, Kessler.
Behold, this have I planted in a good spot of ground, and I have nourished it this long time, and only a part of the tree hath brought forth tame fruit, and the other part of the tree hath brought forth wild fruit. Behold, I have nourished this tree like unto the others.
So whatever group this represents, they had good and bad, right? People.
Right. And which makes me think that this is the Nephite branch. This is the
Except
branch that was scattered to the North American continent because it's placed in a good spot of ground. There's nothing by a good spot of ground is a spot of ground wherein it does not have to compete with a whole lot of other things.
So, I would wonder if this is the good spot of ground that the Nephites were on. I would wonder if this is the Jaredites, because there was good and bad with the Jaredites at first.
That's true.
At the end, later, it's just my inclination is that it's less likely to be the Nephites, Lamanites right now because they get pulled in later, as we looked at, like in
Okay, well let's take a look and see. Let's take a look and see as we go through if it's possible that this could just be a later revisitation to the same place, because it seemed it seemed to me that I remember that they revisit the same places.
They do at times.
But let's go with your theory for now.
Yeah, anyways, it's a possibility, but I would be more inclined to think Jaredites here, but it is interesting that it is a good spot of ground, right?
Yeah.
So
And basically when you're talking about horticulture, a good spot of ground is a spot of ground where it does not have to compete with other growing things for its nutrients. Whereas the poor spot of ground, we're talking about a place where it has to compete with a lot of things, including possibly trees and other trees and other things. So
now, if this is Jaredites, like I'm suggesting, that's back with Abraham time, right?
yeah, well, but that would kind of undercut. The Jaredites were pre-Abraham. Jaredites were at the Tower of Babel.
Yes, Abraham was around that time.
Well,
yeah,
you're right.
He was
he was
yeah,
young.
his father
young
worked for Nimrod, if I remember correctly.
Well, that's only if you put much on the book of Joshua.
Oh, is that only in the Joshua?
That's only in the Joshua, in the Joshua narrative. So if you put a lot of weight on the book of Joshua, then yes.
I don't put a lot of weight there, so that would be something we'd have to go
Because
investigate then.
because it-
I don't put a lot of
Nimrod,
weight. Jasher has problems. We'll just
Nimrod was the founder of the Tower of Babel, and
Right.
it was during his reign that the Tower of Babel that the languages were confounded because of the Tower of Babel. And that is the thing that sends the Jaredites off, which
right. But I do think Abraham was alive around that time though. But let's
that may be. It depends. That depends, but it depends on. But for me, right now, it depends on the veracity.
okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So for me, though, at this point, that would depend upon the veracity of the Book of Joshua.
Well, if it's only in Joshua, I would agree with that. But let's sidetrack a little bit, just out of curiosity.
Because it might help us to understand if this is a different iteration of of people on the same of trees on the same land.
Well, one thing, let's before we do the other thing I was thinking of, let's go do a little Bible. Oops. Timeline. Just out of curiosity. Let's see. Let's do. Okay. Abraham around 2000.
Abram 28.
Abraham a lot. So I mean,
ways. Tower of Babel is before 2100. The 2091, God sends Abram to Egypt. So Abram might have been able to be there.
Abraham had Isaac around 100 years, right?
Right. Yes, he was 100. He was 101 years old.
Yeah. So, go according to this timeline, right?
He could have been alive. He could have been alive at the
time. Let me move this. I'm trying to get a calculator. Move this. So 2066, you said what?
Minus 101.
No, it's plus.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Plus 101. You're right.
So that's 2167. He was alive.
He could have been. He very well could have been. It just says before 2100. It doesn't say when before 2100.
Okay. So it's not exact.
But what I'm saying, I am giving you that it is not outside the realm of possibility.
Right. So, you're right. This is not very accurate there. We can see. Let's maybe just look at one other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the chronology of the Bible, Wikipedia, maybe. I don't know.
Okay, they're using AM.
And it's really general. Really.
Yeah, that's where. Yeah, that's not helpful. Not for what we want right now, anyways.
What about this one?
That?
No, the one with the yellow and the green, the one with the yellow and the two greens.
This one?
That one. See if that gives us anything.
Okay.
No, not really.
No,
It doesn't even go up to the flood.
No.
Let's see. Let's see.
It's kind of iffy, which makes sense, but I do think it's close, like, because it talks about dinosaurs close to the flood. But anyways,
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's. Let's try this one. Okay.
This is the history of the Bible from
Yeah, it doesn't have Abraham really. So
Yeah. That was useful.
yeah. Maybe Bible history. Okay, so after these three, I guess we're done. Oh, let's see. First, Noah. Okay, that's unless it lets it zoom in. Oh,
Marriage of Abraham and Sarah. What does this have here? Lot here.
Oh, here we go.
Abraham right here.
Yeah, Abraham right here.
Where is Tower? Do they have Tower of Babel anywhere?
Yeah.
Abraham was alive while Noah was. That's interesting.
Well,
It does. It seems to be more of a Semitic.
Well, so
this is-
this gets into the issue of ages of Abraham's dad when he had him, and some of those other people, right?
Right.
And so, that's actually going to make that even more difficult, and I'm sure that's, anyways. So we'll just leave it at the realms of possibilities, and we don't know for now, I guess.
Yeah.
It's getting kind of.
I think we're. I think that. I think that's.
I think it's just in the realms of possibilities, and we don't know for sure one way or the other.
Yeah. Agreed.
It's interesting to speculate, but anyways, okay. So where verse are we on? 26?
Actually,
I want to do one other thing. I wanted to do search for good, right?
Right.
Was it good? Good. It wasn't just good though. It was good spot. Was that the
Good spot? Yeah.
Okay, twice in 25 and 43.
The same words.
Yeah,
It's the same spot of land.
I did plant in a good spot of ground.
Yeah, this is that section that you're talking about was about the Nephites and Lamanites.
Right. And then what's
So
interesting
it's
though, 44, I also did
but
cut
then-
down, which was cumbered upon the spot of land.
That
That's
so
the
it might be,
Jaredites.
it might be the Jaredites.
So that makes me lean towards 24 and 25 being Jaredites, to be
Okay.
honest. But that's just my leaning, and we don't know for sure. But I did plant in a good spot of ground. Let's go see. I planted in a good spot of ground. It could be the same, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's worded in a way that it might not be, but it is interesting that 45, he went and took stuff out that was there before, right? Because I plugged out.
Part
Or no, wait, where'd it go? Oh no, sorry, 44. Ha. And I beheld that I also cut down which cumbered the spot of ground that I might plant this tree in the stead thereof.
Yep.
So the fact that it's saying had to bring something out that it was already there leads me also to think that 24 and 25 is the Jaredites.
Well, but let's examine and see if there's actually any evidence.
You want to repeat that, Matt?
Yeah,
Or-
give it a sec. I can't hear him if you're talking to me, Stephen. So I'm sorry. Ben, could you please repeat that?
You should first examine and see if there's any evidence that the branches, new branches have been brought in, as opposed to the second time they come around, as opposed to just waiting and seeing what comes off of the branches.
Okay, so he's talking about basically looking to see if I'll let him explain that because there's a lot of steps. It's a lot of steps, and
Okay.
so I think I can see where you're getting this where you're getting that those are the Jaredites. I can see your reasoning for it. I think though that it's important to see whether or not the Lord of the vineyard and the servant of the vineyard cut down and replace, or do they just nourish, dung about, prune, and wait and see what comes off of the fruit as we read forward.
Sure, that makes sense.
Because if it doesn't state, if other than there's nothing, this says that I've also cut down that which cumbered this spot of ground, but it doesn't mean that didn't happen prior to 25.
Sure. Right. So we need to do some more reading because we did jump like 20 verses.
Yeah, exactly.
So I mean, those 20 verses could be important. Right?
So let's be Bereans, make sure that we've got this right.
Sure. No, but there is some support, but we need to continue reading and see if that is the case, right?
Right. We need to see if it all adds up.
Yeah, and that's fair. That's completely fair, right? Because I'll tell you, I don't have those 20 verses memorized. I'm being honest.
I have a hard time.
Cold, right?
I have a hard time remembering my name if it's not yelled at me at least twice a day.
Sure. All right. Zach, are you willing to read 26 and 27?
Yep. In the past, that the Lord of the vineyard said to the servant, "Pluck off the branches that have not brought forth good fruit, and cast them into the fire."
Okay, so that here the Lord, here's God telling, here's the Father telling the Son what to do with with that tree.
And just off my inclination, I think it's related to 25, but that's not everything, right? It's just some.
Right, but it's not, and as we're about to read, it doesn't actually happen.
Okay.
The Son says, verse 27, Zach.
But behold, the servant saith to him, "Let us prune it and dig about it, and nourish it a little longer, that perhaps it may bring forth good fruit unto thee, that thou canst lay it up against the season."
So, they're going to try some more. Now, that can go with the Jaredites, but that can also go with other societies also. So
Right,
it's pretty generic, right?
And so, but what we do know is that it's a society on a good spot of ground with no competing thought processes besides Yahweh's laws.
Well, there's wild fruit, so I would disagree with that. Right?
No, that doesn't necessarily. When it was brought there was no wild fruit. There was nothing there. It was a good spot.
Oh, okay. Well, when it first brought there, yes. Okay, I thought you meant something else. So
no, it's when this I'm still just drawing the character of this branch that has both that's bringing forth both the wild and so it's on a good spot of ground. No competition from anything but Yahweh. No competition. It's Yahweh's laws.
Right. When they first got there, other than the bad ideas that they brought themselves, right?
Right.
Which to me, actually, I think lends some support for it being Jaredites, but we need.
But it also lends some support for it being Laman and Lemuel. They had plenty of bad ideas.
Well, right, but I think they
ended up in the good spot of land.
They get planted later.
Yeah. But where in the analogy are they planted?
Right, later in the 40s. But anyway,
no, that's not. How do we know that's a new planting? That's my point. How do we know?
Okay, well, I do believe it's planted later, but let's find out because I hear your point, and we need to read the verses to go one way or the other.
Sorry, I'm a bit of a stickler for.
No, that's fine. That's fine. That's a completely valid point, and we just need to read further. Is all I'm saying, right?
Yep.
Okay. Christy, are you able to read? Nope. Okay, so I'll read 28. And it came to pass that the Lord of the vineyard and the servant of the Lord of the vineyard did nourish all the trees of the vineyard. And it
Okay.
came to,
Okay, so they nourished them. Okay.
right. So, giving them revelation, right, and helping them.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Giving them, helping them understand the law.
right. And it came to pass, a long time had passed away, and the Lord of the vineyard said unto his servant, Come, let us go down into the vineyard, that we may labor again in the vineyard. For behold, the time draweth near that the end soon cometh. Wherefore I must lay up fruit against the season unto mine own self. So the time draweth near to the end soon cometh. That's an interesting phrase, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't even think we've hit the point where I would call that we've done Gentiles yet. So, I mean, this could just be how the soon cometh, the end is soon here. Does that mean in 2,000 years?
The other thing you have to bear in mind is that there are 2 times.
Sorry, say that one more time.
There are 2 times. The Savior the Messiah comes twice.
Right. But
Once as a shepherd and once as a king.
right. So that's the first coming and the second coming, but
that's 2 times. So it could very well be very well leading up into the time of the Gentiles. Which came after the first time.
Right. It's just, and the end soon cometh. I just,
well, the end soon cometh, and
yeah, this is where the soon
in Joshua and Leviticus as well.
I think it's just more that I was trying to go off is the end soon. Soon is an interesting word.
Right. Yes.
That's just more. Did you want to say something, Zach?
No, I think that was someone else talking.
Oh. Well, they're not speaking up, so I guess we'll go on.
That was Matt.
But, Matt, did you want to say something?
I just said soon is a loaded word in God's vocabulary.
Yes, I think that's what we're all kind of agreeing on, right? So that makes this part right there really hard to interpret.
The thing that you have to understand is that soon, the word that's translated to soon, that Hebrew word also just simply means surely. That it's going to happen. It's a sure thing.
So do you have an example off the top of your head that we could go look on Bible Hub on that? Because that is interesting. That's a good insight.
I saw it on a funny thing is I saw it on a YouTube video and I can't remember which one now.
That's fine. Let's sidetrack that because that's a good little tidbit there, right?
So the thing is that when it says in the Bible soon,
so
let's take a look at, see if we can look at words, just words. Soon, quickly, hastily, of course, that's one. Quickly, rapidly.
When.
Shortly.
So unless you remember a verse,
I don't remember.
It's hard.
It is, I know. Come on.
There's quickly, because this could get in the case of which
I can't remember.
Which soon, right?
But what you guys have already said, what is any of this time that we've spent on this world? What is that to God?
It's seconds.
That's really nothing.
Yeah.
So soon is, like you guys said, it's a relative word. You don't know how soon is. But yes.
Let's see if we can do that. Oh, look at that. Okay. Surely, howbeit. just mere, another, okay. So once though, only once,
Once, yeah.
where the one, at least in this case, most of the time it looks like it's only 52, right? And then there's 37 surely. And I think the next one's 13 nonetheless. And then however 9. Well, that's weird to get surely with however. I guess it would depend on the sentence. But
Basically what it looks like, yeah, but only once is it soon. Okay.
right. So to me, that's not a very strong case.
Yeah.
So I wonder
Just-
if there's another word. So go ahead, Zach.
I just looked it up in 1828 dictionary.
Okay. Soon.
Yeah. And number 3 is you getting it?
Okay, you want to
Number
read it?
3. Number 3, readily, willingly, but in this sense, it accompanies would or some other word expressing your will.
It's expressing that it will happen.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Which goes along with the confusing thing with soon.
Yeah.
Readily. But so this definition sounds like what you saw in a video still could be true, and maybe it's just a different Hebrew word, right?
I may be, and I may have just missed it. I may have just missed it. It may have just been somebody resting. It may have just been somebody taking that one example to try to explain the soon in the Bible.
So here's something on Blue Letter Bible. Yeah,
I think it's just somebody who is just trying to come up with with a different explanation.
yeah, because right here that's actually translated as surely and not soon. Just looking at least the ESV. So I don't know what to say right now.
No, I'm okay with it not being. I'm okay with having presented something that might not be true.
Sure, that's fine. Well, that's why
And we tested it and we tried it and it wasn't true and it's okay.
It doesn't look like it right now, right?
Yeah,
I'm giving a little slack because we don't know what actual Hebrew word, but
right. But yeah, so like I said, we tested it, we proved it, and we saw that it wasn't true.
sure.
And that's actually a good exercise.
Right. But Zach brought out the 1828 dictionary definition. It does still bring out how soon does not necessarily mean soon. In the way that
and there was another definition that said basically after that it said it's as basically as soon as this happens, this will follow.
yeah, so it's like an if then, right?
Yeah.
So there's some definitions that of soon that are not used typically, which kind of goes along with the idea that soon is kind of an iffy, tricky word in scriptures, right? So if nothing else, at least the English dictionary proved that out, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So anyways.
Yeah, I'm not heartbroken over it.
No. It was an interesting idea though, right?
Yeah.
You want to read 30?
Yeah, it was an interesting idea that was worth looking into.
Right.
And that's it.
Okay. You want to read 30?
But oh yeah, sure. And it came to pass, the Lord of the vineyard and the servant went down into the vineyard, and they came to the tree whose natural branches had been broken off, and the wild branches had been grafted in. And behold, all sorts of fruit did cumber the tree. Okay.
So this is a different tree that we were just talking about, right? This is different than the one.
This is actually the original tree. It's a
Right.
this is the original tree to which they had grafted in the wild branches.
Okay.
And it came to pass that the Lord of the vineyard and the servant went down into the vineyard, and they came to the tree whose natural branches had been broken off. Because that's how we know it's the original tree,
Right.
because they broke off the natural branches of it. And the wild branches have been grafted in, and behold, all sorts of fruit did cumber the tree. And it came to pass that the Lord of the vineyard did taste the fruit, every sort according to its number. And the Lord of the vineyard said, Behold, this long time have we nourished this tree, and I have laid up unto myself fruit against laid up unto myself against the season much fruit. But behold, this time it hath brought forth much fruit, and there is none of it which is good. And behold, there are all kinds of bad fruit, and it profiteth me nothing, notwithstanding all our labor. Now it grieveth me that I should lose this tree. So I don't think that this allegory is historically hitting on every historical point. So I don't know that it's hitting on the age of the Gentiles. It's hitting on
Later, I do believe
to me it seems like to me it seems like it's hitting on when the trees are producing good and bad fruit.
So it does hit age of the Gentiles later on, more in the 60s, 70s.
Well, yeah, okay,
We're like 30 verses away.
yeah, okay.
But this almost sounds like maybe Israel a little. Not that it matters, but
Israel,
I'm a little more
I don't know that
inclined
Israel
right
had,
now.
I don't know that Israel itself as a nation had all kinds of fruit, different kinds of fruit. They had, well,
Yeah,
actually,
sure.
maybe
They went after the gods of Cana.
they all went after different gods, I suppose.
Well,
Yeah.
if you're talking about the 10 tribes, most of their fruit was not good. Okay.
No, the 10 tribes had no good fruit. But here, I think this is talking about Jacob as a whole.
Well,
And
still,
land.
Jacob as a whole, they didn't really keep the commandments on a whole.
That's true.
There was only remnants that really kept
Okay, well,
through history. Is
let's
the
keep
way that
going.
I'm somewhat inclined to
Yeah,
remember.
I can see that. Let's keep going forward.
Okay. Kisley, you wanna? I think Ben did part of 31. You want to do the second part of 31 and 32?
Sure. Okay. And the Lord of the vineyard saith, Behold, this long time have we nourished this tree, and I have laid up unto myself against the season much fruit. But behold, this time it hath brought forth much fruit, and there is none of it which is good. And behold, there are all kinds of bad fruit, and it profiteth me nothing, notwithstanding all our labor. And now it grieveth me that I should lose this tree.
Interesting.
But anyway.
Interesting.
Well,
Let's move forward to the other.
For sure. There's a lot of times in Israel history that they were pretty much all wicked, right?
Right. This could still. We haven't really narrowed anything down.
No. This is still kind of general still, but yeah. You want to do 33 and 34, Kesley?
Yeah. And the Lord of the vineyard saith unto the servant, What shall we do unto the tree, that I may preserve again good fruit thereof unto mine own self? And the servant saith unto his master, Behold, because thou didst graft in the branches of the wild olive tree, they have nourished the roots, and they are alive, and they have not perished. Wherefore thou beholdest that they are yet good.
So the
roots are good.
The roots are still good, right? Because of the wild branches.
Because the wild branches are prospering on the roots.
Right. So the natural branches are doing it, but the wild branches are doing some nourishment. Whatever those wilds are, some wilds got put in, right?
Well, they purposely grafted in wild branches. That was earlier in the
Right.
So I'm not sure
No.
who we're not sure who they are, but
Correct. But whoever those wild ones were helped keep Israel good, right? Okay. 35. I guess I can read. And it came to pass that the Lord of the vineyard said unto his servant, the tree profiteth me nothing, and the roots thereof profiteth me nothing, so long as it bringeth forth evil fruit. So even the roots are good, but all the branches are bad. It's still, they're worthless, right? 'Cause they're not
if no good fruit's coming from it, if no anointed are coming.
Yeah. Nevertheless, I know that the roots are good. For mine own purposes I have preserved them, and because of their much strength, they hitherto brought forth from the wild branches good fruit. So the wild branches have some good fruit.
Mhm.
But behold, the wild branches have grew and have overran the roots thereof. Okay, now this is where the wild branches are starting to get too big for the britches, right?
Mhm.
Therefore,
Spicy.
and because of the wild branches have overcome the roots thereof, meaning like basically are not doing according to the roots, right? It hath brought forth much evil fruit. And because that it hath brought forth so much evil fruit, thou beholdest that it beginneth to perish. And this almost sounds like it could be the times of the Gentiles.
Yeah,
Other than it's so early.
This sounds like I'm sorry. This sounds like the Catholic Church. The wild
Right.
is overcoming the good roots.
I hear you, but there's some later in the chapter in the 70s, 60s, 70s that I would tie more to that than this one. So I think this is something else.
And my point is that they could all be they could be cross referring to the same thing.
I hear you on that, but I don't think so. But well, let's just keep reading.
Yeah.
And it will soon become ripened, that it will be cast in the fire, except you should do something for it to preserve it. So that ripening. So I mean, anyways, that's a bad thing, right?
Yeah, ripening iniquity, bad thing.
Yeah, and that's when you get cast in the fire, and that's
bad day.
Sure.
Generally, it would be for me. It would be a very bad hair day.
Well, it'll be more than just a bad hair day, all right? But it will come because you're misusing your authority, right?
Right. What?
Hair is idiom for authority.
Yep. I know.
Anyways, and it came to pass that the Lord of the vineyard said unto his servant, let us go down into the neithermost parts of the vineyard, and behold, if the natural branches have also brought forth evil fruit. And it came to pass that they went down to the nethermost parts of the vineyard, and it came to pass they behold that the fruits of the natural branches became corrupt also, yea, the first and the second, and also the last, and they had all become corrupt. And the wild fruit of the last had overcome, and part of the tree brought forth good fruit, even that the branch had withered away and died. So
Okay.
I don't know.
Here what I'm seeing is up to at 400 AD. At the time, at about 400 AD, every whit of this had been fulfilled. I can see it because the Lamanites had overcome the Nephites. But we can go forward and we can.
Yeah, I don't think we're into the Lamanites and Nephites yet, to be honest.
Well, I mean, that's 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, and 45. That was where you're highlighted
Right,
Nephites.
well, so
versus
let's go, because that was down at 43. Let's go, let's do 41. Let's see, because it is getting close to that time, right? But let's see.
Right, but all of the 41 through 45, I think, are all describing what's been described to us from a viewpoint standpoint, from a grieving Lord standpoint.
Sure. Okay. All right. Well, let's look. And it came to pass that the Lord of the vineyard wept and said unto the servant, what could I have done more for my vineyard? Behold, I knew that all the fruit of the vineyard, save it were these, had become corrupt. And now these which have once brought forth good fruit have brought corrupt fruit. Now all the trees of a vineyard are good for nothing, save it be hewn down and cast in the fire. And behold, this last whose branch had withered away, I did plant in a good spot of ground, yea, even that which was choice unto me, above all other parts of the vineyard. And thou beholdest that I cut down that which covered this ground, that I might plant this tree in the stead thereof.
Yes, so the tree from the branch from 20 is the same branch that was planted in the place of that which was cut down, which cumbered the land before.
Right. So I do, the way that this is kind of worded going through here, this does make me go along with you more, Ben, that the, what was it, 23? These guys are the Lehites. Yeah, I think
I think the difference is the only difference that may have existed in our viewpoint concerning this parable is how far back it goes.
Right. But
because for me, what
I
I'm
am leaning
seeing
towards what you were stating before at this point, that 23, 24, 25, especially with how we just read through this and what we just read right there with the 40, 42, 43, 44, 45, that does sound more like the 25 ones were the Lehites, right?
Yeah. And and I'll tell you what I see. This is a parable of the break off, the scattering, if you will, of Israel. Because that's the tree.
Well, that's happened multiple times, though.
But yes, and he breaks off multiple branches at the beginning.
We're right. And so we're just trying to figure out which branches are which.
Right. And my point is that and all I'm saying is that he keeps revisiting the same branches, scattered branches.
Okay.
That's what I see, and I may
Okay.
be wrong. I may be wrong.
No, that could be. I mean, it's been a while since I've read the beginning of this, and even when I did focus on it, I focused more on the end. But anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So, but this is what I'm seeing, and
I am agreeing with you that I think it makes more sense right now that the 25 verses areas is Lehites, right?
Yes, I agree.
Okay.
Given just what we've read here.
Right. It seems to flow better that way, right? Yeah. So actually, let me pause for a minute, okay? Can you see this?
I can see that there are words on the page. I can't really read it.
Oh, okay. So I'm going to take a picture with my phone and then put it on the computer. So I'm going to go pause again. But anyways, just so people know, this is an original 1900 Book of Mormon. So I'm looking at the footnotes. See, oh, you can't see that says 1900. I'll take a picture of that too. So let me pause again.
Okay.
Record. Okay, so I just took some photos from my phone of my 1900 Book of Mormon, printed in Salt Lake City, 1900. I bought this from a kind of a collector's bookstore, right? But anyways, okay. So the one that's interesting, the 25, okay. Is on that good spot, right?
Yep.
It's kind of curved a little bit, but you can tell, right? Go down to O. It's America. So we got that right. Now let's go. And only part of the tree hath brought forth tame fruit. Go
That's
down to
true,
B.
yeah.
That's Nephites. So this 25 and on goes along with the 40 and on later, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Q of the tree hath brought forth tame fruit, and the other part of the tree hath brought forth wild fruit. Go to the Q. Lamanites. Fruit. Behold, I have nourished this tree like unto the other. Let's see if we can find R. Oh, there's R. Okay. And it came to pass that the Lord of the vineyard said unto the servant, pluck off the branches that have not brought forth good fruit and cast them into the fire. We go look at R. Lamanites. Are
S.
supposed to be an S. It looks weird.
Yeah, I know.
Maybe.
And it came to pass that it correlates to a long time had passed away, and that's about 18 centuries, is what they say.
Okay. I'm just trying to find it here. Oh, right there, a long time.
I don't know about the 18 centuries
Yeah,
because
because the Book of Mormon
the
itself
description
is
of
only.
the description of events points to a time in the and the next visitation points to a time when all the fruit is corrupt. But that might be the time. But
Later on we get back.
I mean, it
to
could
the
be
Nephites
18.
and Lamanites.
It could be 18 centuries, but
I
would say that around the 1200s everything was corrupt.
well,
Or the 1400s, all the fruit of the trees were on the trees were corrupt.
yeah,
1400s.
I right off I think that's
I still think
Fine,
they're grasping at straws.
yeah. So let's see what T is. Just because they're saying Joseph Smith on T. Let's go find T.
It said the Lord of the vineyard said unto his servant. They're equating the servant here with Joseph Smith.
No, I just
Yeah, so that's that there. So when you get into 29, they start delving into Brighamite garbage.
yeah. So in fact we talked about it in the last recording, but I'll just say it again right now. The master of the vineyard is the father. The servant of the vineyard is the son. Okay.
Because the master and the servant are there throughout.
And that's the only one that has done that is the father and the son. Okay. So that Joseph Smith,
And the facts of the matter are that 25 and 45 could both still be talking about the Nephites, and the father could still be the Lord, and the servant could still the father could still be the Lord of the vineyard, and the servant could still be the son. So.
Right. I do know though that there are a lot of people to like the Doctrine of Christ people and and some other breakoffs that they do say the servant is Joseph Smith, and
a lot of that has to do with they're not willing to refer. They don't like the idea of referring to. They don't like the idea of referring to Yeshua as servant.
right. But I mean, the son is a servant, right?
He himself defined himself so.
Right. I mean, New Testament.
Right.
His mortal ministry. Just one off the top of my head. I'm sure there's others, but that's the only one I can think of right now. But anyway.
Well, yeah, no, there he defined himself as a servant.
Right.
The second ministry comes as a king.
Exactly. Right. Uh-huh. Oh, did I take that page twice?
Yeah, I guess you did.
Okay. So distant islands, let's see. Oh, 2E. Let's see if we can find that. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's 2A.
Okay.
Is that I think that
Maybe they've held.
2C. Okay, 40. Oh.
Oh.
No, that makes sense because that's what kind of the other ones. Oh wait, but it's not quite that area. But so, and the wild fruit of the last had overcome the part of the tree that brought forth good fruit.
That's 2E.
Okay, that makes sense. That
Lamanites,
being
Nephites.
Lamanites. The Lamanites did take over the Nephites, right?
Yep.
And it says here 2F is the Nephites. So that makes sense.
Well, I mean, it's so descriptive in verse 40. This has to be the Lamanite Nephite thing, according to the narrative that is given to us in the Book of Mormon. The wild fruit of the last had overcome the part of the tree which brought forth good fruit, even that the branch had withered away and died. The branch that brought forth good fruit had withered away and died.
Right. And that's the ending in the Book of Mormon, right?
Yep.
The Lamanites that stayed, or the ones that became wicked. So so that makes sense. So and then again at 2I, let's see, G H I. Yeah, and that goes along with the picture I showed earlier from the 1907. That's Nephites in both of them. And then
2K is cumbered, that which cumbered the Jaredites.
yeah, so that goes along with what the 1907 did.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Yeah,
the
I think.
Nephites, and then the Lamanites.
Yeah, I think we've discovered what the third branch was.
Is this the third one? I don't remember the numbers, but anyways.
There were two other branches. One was set on a poor spot of ground. The other was set on a poorer spot of ground.
No, it's interesting though. It is
Outside, and then there was this one which is set on a good spot of ground.
right. The looks like the 1900 has more footnotes to the Nephites and the Lamanites than the 1907 does, because I'm looking at the other one at the same time. So they took some out.
Yeah, they've been progressively trying to water this down.
Yeah. Yes, they have. Which is not good.
But to the people who really want to know, you can always find out.
Yeah. So I'm just curious. Let's just that's 2O. Is that N? I guess that looks like an O.
Yeah. To
just at the top next to of no worth.
Oh wow, no worth but to be hewn down and cast into the fire. Present condition of the Indians.
Yeah.
These people need to be shot.
Well, anyway,
that's
that's
uncalled for. That's uncalled for.
No, that's not how they are now. Okay, there was a point, but not right now. Okay,
right. I mean, they're no more in that condition. They're no more in that condition than we are, and they're no more in that condition than the people who wrote this, who typeset this edition of the Book of Mormon.
Yeah. They, in fact, I would say they were ready to listen because Joseph Smith told to send missionaries to him in the DNC, right?
Yeah.
And so they didn't actually meet like they were supposed to because some stuff happened. I don't remember all the details, but
and then they didn't go to the Indians. They went to their white neighbors.
Right. So that's a problem on the early church, not the Indians. So
Yep.
anyways, so I don't agree with all these footnotes. Some of them are good, some of them not. Okay, so this just 2Z, 2DZ. This might be where we start talking about the Gentiles. So we're not there yet. So maybe let's go back, and if we want, we can go back to the pictures.
Let's leave the Brighamite garbage and go back to
Well,
the.
it's not all garbage. Some of it is.
Yeah,
Not all of it, right?
not all of it. Not all of it's garbage.
Let me hit the right button. Press the button.
There we go. Well, thanks for sharing that with us. That was pretty
Well,
cool.
we got some more coming up, but let's get
Let's
there.
get there. Let's get there.
Eye on it. While you're,
Let's get there first.
yeah, that's fine. That's understandable, right?
Yep.
But that did turn out to be some helpful, right?
Yeah. Well, it certainly narrows in the thing. And for me, on a certain level, it can also narrow in which scattering this is a prophecy concerning.
Well, I do think there's multiple scatterings, but
I don't think they're all encompassed. I don't think every scattering is encompassed in this.
I agree with that, because I do, as we read on, I do think we'll get some Gentile. I think
yeah, we will. We will.
But
We'll
anyway,
get to the
I forget what verse we're on. Sorry.
we finished through 45.
Okay. You want to read for a little bit, Ben?
Okay. And now behold, notwithstanding all the care which we have taken of my vineyard, the trees thereof have become corrupted, and they bring forth no good fruit. And these I had hoped to preserve, to have laid up fruit thereof against the season unto mine own self. But behold, they have become like unto the wild olive tree, and they are of no worth, but to be hewn down and cast into the fire, and it grieveth me that I should lose them. But what could I have done more for my vineyard? Have I slackened mine hand, that I have not nourished it? Nay, I have nourished it, and I have digged about it, and I have pruned it, and I have dunged it, and I have stretched forth mine hand almost all the day long. And the end draweth nigh, and it grieveth me that I should hew down all the trees of my vineyard and cast them into the fire, that they should be burned. Who is it that has corrupted my vineyard? And it came to pass that the servant said unto his master.
So just pause for 1 minute. I do think 46 does talk about the state of the Lamanites around the 400 AD or 420 and some beyond, right?
Well, yeah, I think, but I think
they've repented from that.
46 is not just referring to the Lamanites, it's referring to the whole world. The whole world, every tree in the vineyard. Worthless to be cast into the fire. It's talking about which we have taken.
Yeah, you're right. It is plural trees.
The trees thereof have become corrupted. That they
right. And so this is like the
whole world.
The whole
in apostasy.
Yeah. Okay. All right, I can see that. Okay.
And what could I have done more in my who is it that has corrupted my vineyard? And it came to pass that the servant said unto his master, is it not the loftiness of thy vineyard? And who inspires loftiness in the vineyard? He who inspired he who made himself lofty in heaven.
Satan.
Yep.
Yeah. In fact, do you remember the verse that says that? Top of your head?
That Satan whom thou hast commanded in the name of mine only begotten. That Moses or inspired words in Genesis. chapter 2 or chapter 1, very end of chapter 1. No, very end of the writings preceding chapter 1.
Here, let's pause.
There's a lot of things.
Okay, so law. Or do you think I should do loftiness or
Just
Oh.
put
Just
lofty.
Don't get lofty.
okay? So why, right? Spelling is not my strong point. All right. Oh,
Nothing so far. Oh, wait, here we are.
okay. So we get those
Oh,
quite a few actually.
yes. And some of them are actually right in line with what we're talking about here. Can we get that back up again?
Yeah, I'm putting it in OneNote, remember?
Oh, yeah. Oh, right. Yeah, that's right.
This might not be the best, but I'm just gonna start here. All right, okay. So someone want to take a turn read? Christy, you willing to read a little bit?
Yeah, I can read.
Okay, so let's just maybe start at the top and we'll just go down.
Okay, so Psalm 131 verse 1, Lord, my heart is not haughty, nor mine eyes lofty, neither do I exercise myself in great matters or in things too high for me.
Okay, all right, let's go to the next one.
Proverbs 30 verse 13, there is a generation, oh how lofty are their eyes, and their eyelids are lifted up. Isaiah 2:11, the lofty looks of men shall be humbled, and the haughtiness of men shall be bowed down, and the Lord alone shall be exalted in that day.
Okay, next one.
Okay, Isaiah 2:12, day of the Lord of hosts shall be upon every one that is proud and lofty, and upon everyone that is lifted up and be brought low. Okay, Isaiah 5:15, and the mean man shall be brought down, and the mighty man shall be humbled. Isaiah 26:5, for he bringeth down them that dwell on high, the lofty city, he layeth it low, even to the ground, he bringeth it even to the dust. Isaiah 57:7, upon a lofty and high mountain hast thou set thy bed, even thither wentest thou up to offer sacrifice.
Oh, yes. This is
Isaiah 57.
57:7 is in direct relation to Israel and Judah whoring after idols and and Satan.
Right, which goes along with what kind of going on in Jacob 5 at this point, right? But anyways,
That's what I was looking at when I said, "Oh yeah, there's even some that are directly in line here."
sure. Let's keep reading.
Okay. Isaiah 57:15, for thus saith the high and lofty one that inhabiteth eternity, whose name is holy. I dwell in the high and holy place, with him also that is of a contrite and humble spirit, to revive the spirit of the humble, and to revive the heart of the contrite ones. 2 Nephi 12:11, and it shall come to pass that the lofty looks of men shall be humbled, and the haughtiness of men shall be bowed down, and the Lord alone shall be exalted in that day. 2 Nephi 12, for the day of the Lord of hosts soon cometh upon all nations, yea, upon every one, yea, upon the proud lofty, and upon every one who is lifted up, and he shall be brought low. 2 Nephi 15:15. And the mean man shall be brought down, and the mighty man shall be humbled, and the eyes of the lofty shall be humbled.
So the loftiness that they're referring to is the lofty looks, as opposed to the lofty one who actually inhabits eternity.
Right. So let's go back to Jacob 5. Which verse was it? I forget.
The loftiness, okay.
Yeah, the lofty.
Verse 48.
48. Okay. And it came to pass that the servant said unto his master, it is not the loftiness of
Is it
thy,
not? Is it not?
is it not the loftiness of thy vineyard? Hath not the branches thereof overcome the roots which are good? And because the branches have overcome the roots thereof, for behold, they grow faster than the strength of the roots thereof, and taking strength unto themselves. Behold, I say, is not this the cause that the tree of thy vineyard hath become corrupt? So they're basically they're overgrowing their goodness and not being good anymore, right?
Yeah, they've it's really interesting. In a forest, the branches of the trees are that which is visible, and the fruit is that which can be experienced by the taste. The roots cannot be seen, but it is the roots that produce all these things. And the thing is that at this time in the world, Torah had been overgrown.
Well,
And it has been overgrown.
Well, for when we start getting, if we get, well, it's getting late, so I don't know how long we want to keep going. But if we get to the point where we start talking about where I think it's where the Gentiles are getting point in, they overgrew it pretty quickly, actually, for the most part.
Well, yeah, but I think that, but I think here is where you see, right here in these verses is where you see the vineyard's all gone bad. It's all bad already.
Sure, and I know we're getting close to that area. I don't remember exactly.
And the thing is when the Gentiles were brought in, yes, they absolutely replaced Torah with their own pagan beliefs.
Oh yes,
And
completely.
this is how Christianity exists today. And it's
not immediately, but soon, because there are
the last of the apostles were not yet cold before the process had begun.
Right, and it didn't even fully happen by Constantine, because they had to do things like saying stop doing the high holidays because people were still doing them. So it wasn't full, but Constantine really pushed it, I would say.
Constantine buried it.
Yeah.
He buried it all.
Yeah,
and the restoration and the restoration that was attempted with Joseph Smith only uncovered a few things.
Sure. It got it started, and Joseph Smith did what he was supposed to, but as I always forget, 2 Nephi 13 or 14 states that he wasn't going to do it all, right?
No, he wasn't supposed to do it all. He was supposed to. In the Book of Mormon, we have much of his gospel.
Right.
If not, well, technically, it depends on what you're defining as his gospel.
Well, so the book has the fullness of the gospel, but it doesn't. It has. Let's go find the verse.
First Nephi 13. First Nephi 13, verse 34, I believe. I've cited this one so many times, trying to explain we don't have the fullness.
Maybe it's 14.
No, it's
Oh
13.
no, it's I'm in the wrong Nephi. It's in
First Nephi
First Nephi, not
13.
second.
Yeah, First Nephi 13, verse 34.
Okay. And it came to pass that the angel of Yahweh spake unto me. So just FYI, since we're here, the angel of Yahweh is Yahweh, and this is the angel that's been speaking to Nephi throughout this whole vision.
Right.
It's this angel of Yahweh, which is Yahweh. It's not the Holy
In
Ghost.
other
like
words,
some people
he's seen Yahweh face to face.
Yeah, I'm just putting that out there, that it's not the Holy Spirit that he's talking to. It is Yahweh. It's the angel of Yahweh. All right. Anyways, and it came to pass that the angel of Yahweh spake unto me, Nephi, saying, Behold, saith the Lamb of Elohim, after I have visited the remnant of the house of Israel, and this remnant which I have speak is the seed of thy father. Wherefore I have visited them in judgment, and smitten them by the hand of the Gentiles, and after the Gentiles do stumble exceedingly, so then they're going to fall, right, the Gentiles, because of the most plain and precious parts of the gospel of the Lamb, which have been kept back by the abominable church, primarily the Catholic Church, right, which is
Because all other Christian churches spring from it.
Pretty much.
Or the Eastern Orthodox, which
Yeah,
is
yeah.
basically Eastern Catholic.
Yeah, but even Martin Luther, when he left it, he still did kept a lot of their things that they did that he shouldn't have done. But anyways, that's another subject. Which is the mother of harlots, saith the Lamb, I will be merciful unto the Gentiles in that day, insomuch that I will bring forth unto them in my own power much of my gospel, which shall be plain and precious, saith the Lamb. Much, not all. Right?
Oh, wait. Are you sure? Are you sure you're reading
But
that?
you know,
should I make sure I MUCH? That's much.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Should we go to the dictionary? Do we need dictionary maybe?
Hey, proofread it. Make sure it says that.
I am pretty sure though. I'll sidetrack it a little bit. Just to promote myself a little bit real quick. Much is different than all.
No,
So,
it can't be true.
132 claims that Joseph Smith brought it all, where we just read right there in the Book of Mormon that Joseph Smith only brought forth much. So, if anybody wants to go read that, I'll put it in the notes.
But yeah, I think I think it's probably a good idea to stop here.
Okay, so let me pause.
But I do think that it's good to note until we receive, because of the nature of the written word and the way that it has been corrupted over time. It has been translations have changed things are, until God's power is restored. And until we once again receive additional scripture to clarify, we will be
we'll be trying to figure things out.
We'll be in that land of much of my gospel.
Right.
Well, we will not receive the fullness until his power is again restored.
Yeah. Well, I do believe the mighty and strong one will be coming soon, but soon's an interesting word.
As we
have discovered tonight.
Yeah, well, I mean, we knew it before that, but we brought it out tonight. I do believe he will bring forth more, right? In fact, the DNC talks about how Yahweh will bring another one to bring commandments again. I do believe that is the mighty and strong one. But anyways.
Yeah.
Oh, do you want to say something, Zach?
Yeah, do you remember the crazy horse prophecy that I shared? Discord.
Oh yes.
Could that like fit with Jacob Pipes talking about?
Oh, can you get it again real quick? Here, let's do a pause while we're getting it. All right, Zach, here's the picture. You want to read it real quick?
The red nation shall rise again, and it shall be a blessing for a sick world, a world filled with broken promises, selfishness, and separations, a world longing for light again. I see a time of 7 generations when all the colors of mankind will gather under the sacred tree of life, and the whole earth will become one circle again. Prophecy by Crazy Horse.
Yeah. So I believe this. This goes along with what I see in the Book of Mormon and lots of other prophecies, right? First of all, the Red Nation, Lamanites, shall rise again. Oh yeah. 3 Nephi 21 and 22 are some big ones on that one, right?
First Nephi 13, First Nephi 13 and 30, 14.
Right. Yeah. Goes along with that. And there'll be a blessing for the sick world, yeah, because they'll be giving out Torah, right?
Mm-hmm.
They'll start listening to it because they're gonna get, well, look, they're gonna be sick of everything that he's gonna mention in just a minute, like selfishness and separation, no light, and that light is a symbol for Torah. And I see a time as 7 generations. So I would take this 7 as symbolic as in the perfect number, right?
The fact that he's talking about the fact that it's both 7 generations is capitalized, though that may have been added later. It indicates symbolic, highly symbolic thing.
Yeah, but in the Book of Mormon, it doesn't have to be caps. But I could see how.
No, I'm just
putting
talking.
caps here.
We're not in the Book of Mormon. I'm just talking
All
about.
right, I can see how
the fact that they're trying to make it obvious that this is symbolism.
Yeah, I can see them making it caps is trying to put some emphasis on it, right?
Yeah,
That's symbolism.
they're just making it obvious.
Right. And
this is symbolic.
When all men, all colors, or all men will gather under the sacred tree of life, and that's Yeshua, right?
Yep.
And the whole earth will become one circle again, as in united, right? Because we're all going to be united under Yahweh's way.
One heart, one mind, and that one heart, one mind is the heart and mind of God.
Right. Not our own that we all are fighting over. No, it's my heart and mind that we're supposed to unite to. It's Yahweh's heart and mind, which
is revealed to us.
A good idea what it is in the scriptures, through all of the scriptures, right? Not just a few verses that you like to get the doctrine of Christ out of. All of them.
It is revealed in Torah.
But remember, the law is what God is going to tell you in your heart. He's gonna just give it to you.
Andrew,
put your copy of Aleister Crowley's Bible away. Okay?
Put Aleister Crowley's Bible back under the table.
No, don't put it under the table.
Sorry.
I'll show you what you need to do with it. You need to burn it.
Burn it.
Burn it. Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. I grabbed the wrong book.
No, go burn that.
Go burn that book. Go burn that book.
Right here. Here's all the verses I know to go burn it. Okay, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 5 passages says to go burn it.
Yep, go burn it. Make it a pile of ashes and cinders.
Yeah.
And good thing I'm just joking. Right?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, we all play on that. We all play on that. But the facts of the matter are, is if anybody here does have an Aleister Crowley Bible, they do need to burn it.
Well, what I'm saying is that whole idea of God will reveal the law to your heart, just only through personal revelation is a doctrine of demons, I believe.
Well,
Oh,
so we got to be careful with it, right? Because he can reveal it, and it's supposed to be written on your heart. But
Yeah.
in today's
but
world, people who are using that are saying that it's something completely different that's already been revealed in the scriptures.
Well, these same people are saying that the law was done away with the sacrifice of Christ.
And they're wrong. In fact, I have a record. If you want to watch it, I highly recommend it.
How many recordings have we done on this particular topic, Stephen?
A lot, and we'll probably be doing more, but
No doubt. No doubt.
This is a big deal though, right?
Yeah.
But here's a recording where I go over tons of Book of Mormon verses after Yeshua's death and resurrection. It shows Torah is still valid. Okay.
Yeah. It shows that they still think.
It's long, but you know what? That's because there's lots of verses and we talk about them. So
it shows that they still think Torahically.
Exactly. So what was nailed to the cross was the law of Moses, and that's different than Torah. And I have a recording on that. And
I think that Torahically, that's a great word. I think I should
and
I think I should patent it.
Yeah, so I'll just show you today. So I had one quote from Joseph Smith stating that law of Moses and Torah was different. I spent some time, and we don't have time to go over them, but I'll just show them to you. I found more. Okay.
Wow.
So here, those are JSTs, okay, that go along with it, which through Joseph Smith.
A lot of references to the law of carnal commandments.
Right. That carnal commandments is law of Moses and it's done away with. But here's quotes from Joseph Smith showing that the carnal commandments is done away with. Okay.
Right.
I found some more. And then here it is. Same thing using the word law of Moses or phrase law of Moses. There's some more. So I did some searching today.
Yeah, law of Moses. The thing is that God. Here's the thing: the law of Moses is not the entirety of Torah. In fact, it's merely a punishment inflicted upon the people for their breaking Torah.
Oh yeah. Okay. So
it's just like the law of circumcision. All these laws of carnal commandments, circumcision, law of Moses, they were all punishments inflicted upon the people for breaking Torah.
Okay, so let me show you this one thing I found I thought was cool. So let me show you this one. Since we're going off on this subject now. So it's on this Torah page. I actually didn't write much. The length is because of these verses, okay? But in here, so it's Genesis. I want. Oh. So here's Paul saying it's nailed to the cross. Deuteronomy. No, it's got to be up here. Genesis. Sorry, I don't. Oh, here's the one I want. Galatians. So in here, this talks about Galatians, the JST Galatians 3:12-19. The JST makes it more obvious, but you can still get it without the JST. But I find it interesting. So you'll see here, I've had this law, and then I put in of Moses here in verse 17. So now let me take you back to what I just found some today. Joseph Smith did the same thing. I think that's pretty cool. And I didn't know that before today. Okay.
That is pretty cool.
But I got it from reading the context, which I would say Joseph Smith did too. But anyways, let me
You need to be careful with reading that contextual stuff, man.
let me
You absolutely cannot pause. You cannot read your scriptures in context. They must be isolated in every incident.
Must be
To
isolated.
not only isolate the scriptures, but you need to isolate the
There
key
we go.
phrases. You need to isolate the key phrases in the scriptures. Otherwise, you don't properly understand them.
Yeah,
So-
if you don't read only half a verse,
That's right. That's right.
the half
So-
that agrees with your point.
No, actually, that's left. Still.
So actually here let me go, so just so that way you know I'm not pulling anybody's leg and modifying this. Let's go get it from the words of Joseph Smith, which is where I got it from.
That's a good little book, isn't it?
Yeah, I like the digital because I can search, because that's what I just did for wrong.
Hold on. The words of Joseph Smith, that's just a separate book?
Yeah, so I'll go get the Kindle version.
Okay.
It's like $10.
So who wrote it? And like,
Well, there's supposed to be, so don't trust everything in it that's from Joseph Smith, okay? Because a lot of people claim things were from Joseph Smith that actually weren't, right?
yeah, like I understand that. Like the church history is you know,
But it's been
murky as
butchered.
dog.
And even he himself said, if I say anything to you that contradicts the scriptures, throw it away.
Yeah. So here it is. So it is said again in Galatians 3:19 that the law of Moses, or Levitical law, was added because of transgression. That's
Yes.
Joseph Smith right there.
Repeat again.
It's just kind of cool that I was putting that in.
What we at? Yeah, but what follows it up is awesome.
Oh, sure.
What
Because it equates the gospel. It equates the gospel with Torah.
Let me go back.
Not in so many words per se, but he says it was added to the gospel.
Yeah, what book is this that you're reading?
This is the words of Joseph Smith, the
Oh.
Kindle edition. So here's the full name: Words of Joseph Smith Deluxe Edition, and then it adds other stuff to it because it has
Oh.
multiple things, and it has the words of Joseph Smith, the teachings of the prophet Joseph Smith, which actually this is actually from this section because you see that's the part that's highlighted. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some other things that I got in searching that was actually from the words of Joseph Smith, but just not this one. I was just pointing this.
Okay.
So I think it's cool that I did that with Galatians 3, and then I saw Joseph Smith did it too, right?
What we ask, was this law added to? If it was not added to the gospel.
Well,
It
it's
must-
funny that you're bringing this up because I've been reading this book this week called Joseph and the Gap.
Oh, I don't know that one.
Have you heard of that?
Okay.
And there's a few things that I don't know if I agree with in here as well, but that's what I've been seeing here too, is that he was kind of he talked about the law a little bit, and it seems like they were the Lord was trying to give them the law, but they weren't following it, they weren't keeping it, and so therefore that's why we went under condemnation.
Yeah. And
Well,
Ben
that-
one time brought up in DNC 59 at the end where it states, keep the law and the prophets. Right?
You don't have to pray about what's in the law and the prophets.
It's just
Yeah.
Just do it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Why don't we go to that? Why don't we go to that?
okay. Did you
So
want to
how
read
that-
something else out of this part in the
No,
Kindle?
it must be plain that it was added to the gospel.
Yeah, it
Since
was
we-
added because of transgression, which describes what happened, right?
Yep. Exactly.
And that actually goes along with Galatians 3, 430 years after Abraham.
Right. So let's actually go back. Let's go look up that scripture in Doctrine and Covenants section 59, so that we can prove to the zealous viewer, because they will have to be zealous at this point, that that I'm not just making this crap up.
Well, it's near the end. I remember that.
Okay, here it is. Here it is. Okay. In nothing doth man offend God. Verse 20, starting in verse 21. In nothing doth man offend God, or against none is his wrath kindled, save those who confess not his hand in all things, and obey not his commandments. Behold, this is according to the law and the prophets. You just don't get more plain than that. Obeying the commandments is according to the law and the prophets. Wherefore trouble me no more concerning this matter.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that people know this is Yahweh speaking to Joseph Smith, the prophet, saying, "Stop asking me if you're supposed to keep these commandments that are in these."
Stop asking me if you're supposed to observe the Sabbath. And how you're supposed to observe the Sabbath.
Because I don't think it's just the Sabbath, because it does say commandments,
right?
Commandment, but the Sabbath is part of it.
The whole thing is the whole chapter almost more of the chapter talks about the Sabbath than anything else.
Right. There's a lot in the beginning and mid or whatever that does talk about the Sabbath, but it's not.
But obey not. Behold, this is according to the law and the prophets. Wherefore trouble me no more concerning this matter. If it's in the law and the prophets, we know that it's from him.
Right.
But
now,
learn that he who doeth the works of righteousness shall receive his reward, even peace in this world and eternal life in the world to come.
Right. And I do find it interesting that this revelation was given on a lunar Sabbath, which happened to be a Sunday. We can go, but it's interesting that Joseph Smith never said really what day the Sabbath really was, right?
No, he just kind of went with Sunday.
Well, I think he did try to do. Did he do Sunday or Saturday? I can't remember.
He did. There is a quote of his which could be used to indicate a Saturday Sabbath, or an attempt to go to a Saturday Sabbath. And I know that the Strengites, who were trying to follow in the footsteps of what they believed he was supposed to do, went to a Saturday Sabbath.
This brings I could bring up another thing if you guys want to keep going, but real quick, let me finish with this. That when it was given, it was on a lunar Sabbath.
Yes.
But it's interesting to me that Yahweh didn't tell him when it was. But there were a lot of other pretended prophets that did say that it was Saturday, right? In fact, Friday night to Saturday night, which is not the case for multiple reasons, where Joseph never claimed anything.
The other interesting thing is, not only was it a lunar Sabbath, but it immediately preceded a new moon day.
Yeah. Which just starts a new
lunar Sabbath cycle. Yeah. Oh man, he was just the Lord's just trying so hard to make it so obvious.
Well, for whatever reason, it wasn't time to bring that out yet. So, but anyway.
Goes along with much was restored, but not all, right?
You're right. Exactly. But my thing is, Joseph Smith does not have a revelation through Yahweh stating exactly when the Sabbath is or how to find it, right?
Right.
So, but anyway, so
except that all things in the commandments are according to the law and the prophets.
Right. And I think if he was
around, the Lord is telling him to study it out.
Exactly. And that's how I found it, was by studying it out. I did have some help from others, right?
Right.
For those who are interested, this is my main page for that. There's multiple aspects to it. And I actually, not to scare people away, but I need to add some more. But anyways, this is a good start. But if anything, just go listen to this YouTube playlist. Just listen to it while you're doing other things. But
Okay.
so you don't even have to read. But on Stregnite, here's an interesting thing that I came across. If you guys want to spend some more time with me,
sure.
let me get it up. So I have an interesting belief that I talk about occasionally, but I generally don't make it a big deal. But I believe Yeshua's father was Joseph, Mary's husband. Okay. And that Mary was a Hebrew maiden, meaning a woman of childbearing age. Okay. Now, so why I'm bringing this up, Strangnites believe that also. Oh yeah, and Zach, go ahead and show the book. So this is a book I recommended to Zach on it, and I think this is this guy's passion because he looks at a lot of old manuscripts that shows it, doesn't he, Zach? As in, we believe in the Bible as far as translated correctly, and or because it's more than just translation, right? Because it's been modified.
To me, of all the branches of the Restoration, the Strangites are the most interesting for study.
Well, they have their problems because
I'm not saying that they're true. I'm just saying that they're most interesting for study purposes.
They claim Stringnite claimed a new holiday on the Gregorian calendar instead of the lunar solar.
I know.
He also has his faults.
He was wrong. He was, there was a lot about him that was wrong. I'm just saying.
And his forgery of his.
But I'm just saying that they're interesting for study.
Yeah.
So Stephen, what you're telling me is that you don't believe in the Immaculate Conception.
Exactly. Now,
yeah, I don't believe that.
Actually, just for detail purposes here, Immaculate Conception is actually Mary, not Yeshua.
I get that, but according to the
I don't believe in either one of those.
Whatever.
Yep. Well, I don't believe that God committed adultery with Mary.
Right. Because so on that point, okay, we'll get to these verses in a minute, but Torah, when Mary is espoused to Joseph, if God the Father or whoever you think happened, right, to get it to happen, that is committing adultery. That's against Torah. Okay. And then on top of that, so if Mary committed adultery, which she didn't because it was Joseph's was the father, but if she did commit adultery, Torah states that she should be stoned to get rid of that wickedness from among you. I don't remember exactly how it's stated. So the fact that the Catholic Church modified the text to make it sound like he was just going to put her away privately, I don't believe, because Torah states specifically to stone for that sin. To get rid of the wickedness.
Well, one thing that kind of clued me into the fact that I thought that was kind of bogus is the fact that, that's like the Immaculate Conception thing. That's very much an occult thing. If that makes sense.
That's from Mystery Babylon and Egypt and all that.
So that's the things I was like, I don't buy this.
Right, because it partly is the reason that happens so Mary could be sinless, so she could have the child without.
Yeah, to the right context, sex is not sinful.
No, it's not. It's
in fact, it's actually a very good thing, right?
Right, but I think it's more of they're trying to make it so Mary didn't have the original sin. Is more what that's going on. It's not sex itself, but some people think Mary stayed a virgin even after that, but
The point is
brother of
the
Jesus,
original
but-
sin was not sexual. The original sin was questioning the word of God.
That's true. I get that.
right. But yeah, it wasn't sexual like some people make it out to be. It was, they sinned. Whether if it was a physical fruit or just symbolic, I don't know. I could go either way on that, but I'm it's not something I'm worried about. But
Mhm.
but the way that the Catholic Church tells that goes against Torah on multiple aspects, like we just talked about too. But here, this is interesting. Let's go look at the JST that makes it sound like that's not what's going on. Okay, so this is Luke 1, or JST Luke 1, 34, 35. And when Mary said unto the angel, how can this be? Look at what Joseph Smith got rid of. Joseph Smith crossed out, seeing I know not a man. He crossed that out, got rid of it. And then 35, and the angel answered and said unto her, of the Holy Ghost.
That is a huge addition right there.
Or
Huge.
she-
Action, baby.
The word of.
right.
What's the word?
Of.
So, and the angel answered and said unto her, of the Holy Ghost.
Of the holy behavior.
Right, of the holy behavior, Torah, because he is of Torah, right? And it's prophesied in Torah. It doesn't, and look, it says, shall come unto thee. It didn't say that the Holy Ghost comes unto Mary. Joseph Smith got rid of that. That's another big thing that he got rid of there, right?
That's huge. Yeah, that's big.
And the power of the highest doesn't overshadow thee, but just of the Holy Ghost and the power of the highest. Therefore also that holy child shall be born of thee, shall be called the Son of God. That those have multiple huge changes. To me, pretty much gets rid of the Greek not
Immaculate
having
Conception.
sex birth
Exactly.
or conception, right? Or
Well,
did you
the-
want to say something, Zach?
The author of this, he keeps repeating that Israelites, like pretty much all the time, thought their children were visited by the Holy Spirit or something like that.
Okay.
Well, the thing is, in order to be the interesting thing is when you take the translation from the Hebrew as well, it doesn't say that she's with child by the Holy Ghost, because by like some spirit, it says with child by Ruach HaKodesh, which means the holy behavior.
Well, so what Zach's bringing out probably goes back to Genesis and the creation, how God breathed his spirit into them. And
Yes.
I can see that right there, right?
Absolutely.
Especially with taking shall come upon thee, because that thee is going to Mary, where this
but
of the Holy
this
Ghost
actually
or Holy Spirit goes more along with the Genesis line, right?
Yeah, and it's also in line with the Hebrew translation, with child of Ruach HaKodesh.
Right.
Or the holy behavior, the holy light, the holy breath.
Right.
Because Ruach has a lot of has a few meanings.
Yeah, you have to take context into play.
Yeah.
But I can see that with what Zach was just bringing out, right?
Yeah.
Going back to Genesis. So how all children are born with the Holy Spirit, like you were just saying, right?
And the power of the highest. Okay. So, okay.
Well, I would right now take that to mean that it's God, right?
Yeah.
He's got the power. But
well, yeah, it's which makes me, if with this getting rid of that no not a man shall come upon thee shall and with all these things that are taken away, makes me wonder if Mary was in a position where she thought she was barren or something, because she asks, "How can this be?"
Right. That's interesting. Right.
Wow.
Right.
Mm-hmm. But this also indicates, given our modern medical knowledge, is that her barrenness, like Hannah's, might possibly just have been the result of a misaligned uterus.
Well, so maybe Mary's question is not barren issue, but just that it's God.
Right.
Because that
It
is
could be
kind of
that
a big deal, right?
Yeah.
Because he shall be so, and I'm just trying to think.
But the other reason why I think it's barren is because, and behold, thy cousin Elizabeth, she also hath also conceived a son in her old age. So
Yeah,
we're
and
talking about somebody who believes
that is definitely because of barren.
we're talking about somebody here who believes it is impossible that she can conceive.
Right, right. But it does, thou art blessed among women. So
But I thought Mary was relatively young at this time.
Well, that's actually a fairly common. Technically, they were considered of marriageable age at a much younger time.
I've come across things of that nature, and
Yeah, they weren't
I'm not
they
100% sure, but
they
I
weren't
think that is
waiting for
possible.
18 and then saying, "Now go and discover the world some and have a good time and then get married." Maybe if you feel good about it, then get married. We're not in a hurry to have grandchildren.
So I mean, some people's I don't know if they were having kids at 14, but it's definitely younger than today's society.
Well, there's quite a few records of children being born to girls who are 14, 15, 16 years old. Quite a few.
Oh yeah, I mean I know that happens today, but
no, I'm talking about then. I'm talking about then.
Yeah, I know. Back
And it was perfectly legal, and it was in perfectly legal marriages. A boy was considered. A boy had his bar mitzvah, his introduction into manhood, and his taking up of a trade when he was 12.
Right.
They didn't there back then. There just wasn't this huge hang up on, oh, let the kids be kids, experience life a little.
If I may, I think it's because in a lot of ways they had to grow up quicker.
Right.
You know?
Right. Life was harder.
Well, yeah. So but how long did they learn the trade before they got married? So anyway.
Yeah, there is that.
There are still things up in question.
Well, there were also a lot of marriages of young women to older men. Marriage was an arranged thing.
Yes, it was arranged back then.
So there was a lot of marriages of young people who we would consider teenage girls to 30, even 40-year-old men.
Sure. But anyways,
marriage according to the world's ideals has never been terribly ideal.
Yeah.
In terms of
in today's society, where they think, oh, it's all about love, we have a lot more divorces and other problems.
Exactly.
It's not just a feeling. It's more about, it should be more about commitment than feelings. In fact, Yeshua said, if you love me, keep my commandments. That sounds like, if you love me, endure to the end, have the commitment.
Yes.
Right?
Marriage is about a commitment. And in Israel, that marriage to another man was also symbolic of their marriage to Yehovah.
Exactly.
That marriage to a man was also symbolic of their marriage to Yehovah.
Yeah, and a lot of the marriage imagery in the scriptures go along with Galilean marriage, if I remember correctly. In fact, let me see if I can find it real quick. Is it maybe here? Or no, maybe. If I can, oops. Oh, maybe. Let me see. Maybe this is what I'm looking for. No, that's not what I'm looking for. I'll have to try to find it later, but there's a good video I have about a Galilean marriage that helps us understand a lot of the symbolism. In fact, even to the point where it's the father that knows when the bridegroom goes and gets his bride, which goes along with imagery that goes with the second coming, right? In the New Testament.
Oh, absolutely. It's yeah, I think I may know which video you're talking about.
Well,
but I don't remember what the title of it is.
Yeah, I can't remember. I have too many notes. Sorry. Anyways, but just as in talking about Strangnites believe that Mary or Joseph is the father of Yeshua, also, just as I do.
Yeah. Well,
and there it is, pretty much like in the JST, right? I mean, there's some things that still could be questionable because maybe she's wondering why she was the chosen and blessed, right? To birth him, but anyways,
but I think it's pretty. I think it's a pretty. To me, it's a pretty open and shut case, especially when you cut out, given what's specifically cut out.
Oh yeah, that she did not know a man.
Yeah, and the overshadowing and coming upon, and
yeah, but this
all the in other words, all the language that bespeaks anything sexual.
Right. So as we talked about earlier about how Brigham Young didn't like the JST, Brigham Young twists this version of the King James to make it sound like the Holy Ghost or Heavenly Father birthed Jesus with Mary, right? And where Joseph Smith takes that out. No wonder Brigham Young hates the JST. The JST exposes Brigham Young's lies.
It exposes Brigham Young's lies, and it exposes his blasphemies, because he's basically stating that Christ is a child of whoredom.
Yeah, because adultery, right? Because she was engaged to Joseph. And so,
which, according to Yehovah, an engagement is as good as a marriage.
Yeah. In fact, it is in Torah law. It's the same as a marriage, other than the two spouses can't have sex yet. You have to wait for the wedding for that.
Right.
But for committing adultery, it is the same, right? So, anyways,
which is why it's actually a good suggestion to have long courtships and short engagement periods.
So I know that's what they say, but in general, Hebrew ones were a year. The engagement,
right? Yeah, I get it.
But I will be honest, the Jews also do short engagements now. Also, in fact, sometimes they do the engagement and the actual wedding in the same ceremony now because of some obvious modern day issues. try to do that to avoid the issue, but anyways, that doesn't really fix the problem, right? Because they're just doing it before. Anyways,
You talking about a drive-by wedding?
well, it's not drive-by. It's still they have a ceremony, but they do the engagement and wedding sometimes at the same time, to avoid some issues. But
That doesn't make a lot of sense, but oh well.
because you're
And is the length of engagement actually stated in Torah?
no, I'm inclined to think the year is tradition, but I'm not sure one way or the other. But I'm inclined to think.
Yeah. I'm inclined to think it's tradition too, for the simple reason that I've been going through Torah from top to bottom, and I haven't seen one reference to it.
Sure, but that doesn't. It takes time to catch everything. But anyways, I'm inclined to think it's tradition, but
Mhm.
not 100% sure. Anyways, but that's a little interesting little tidbit where I do believe the JST supports my belief that Joseph, Mary's husband, is Yeshua's physical father.
Mhm.
He's not just adopted, as Christendom tends to push. And books, and I'll put in notes of that book that Zach put up. There's tons of scholarship on it. Tons. That book is what, 300 pages? I don't know how big is it, Zach?
And is that
Oh,
scholarship?
that looks more like 600 pages. And
And
that's
is that
it's
scholarship
scholarly.
original?
It's
Is that
only like
original source citation, or is it citation of other scholars?
190. Well, he does do like a
He sorts original sources. I have it in Kindle, and I've read some of it, not all of it.
Yeah, because that's the thing is I found that a lot of these things that seem to be well researched, if you actually look at their sources, they're just quoting other scholars.
This one quotes original sources.
Okay.
he also like responds a lot to Christian says like, no, it's this way.
Yeah,
And he
some back
states
and
no,
forth,
it's
but
the other thing.
the thing I like about it most is it's quoting some old manuscripts and including some Aramaic ones, right?
Mm-hmm.
That shows that Joseph is the father, and it's not the Greek virgin never had sex. That Mary is she's a Hebrew maiden, woman of childbearing age.
Well, and the fact that is the case, honestly, really adds fuel to my fire for why I say that the Gentiles hijacked Yeshua's church.
Oh, yes and no. I think they yes and no. Because I think the Gentiles were true believers, but they brought in their pagan ways, and after time, they didn't have the Hebrews to keep it under.
They did them out.
Yeah.
They did them out. They hijacked the gospel.
Yeah. Well, and we've talked about it even just in prophecy with Abraham's daughter. Or no, not Abraham's. Jacob's daughter.
Dinah.
And marrying to I forget the term.
Shechem
is a prophecy of that, right? Because they were fooling around with each other.
Yep.
So, but anyways,
I mean, you're right. The Gentiles are not completely to blame for it all, but
no, there's multiple to blame in that, including the Jews. Okay.
Yep.
But anyways,
but the gospel is best on. But it's the Gentiles that made it, that frowned upon trying to understand the gospel from a Hebrew lens.
Yeah, but when you're a convert, you need a teacher and a leader, and the Jews didn't do what they were supposed to on that.
No,
So
they did not. They did not.
There's blame to go around. Okay.
Yeah.
It's just Joseph Smith taught people, right? You are to find a good teacher. Okay, we'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, you can't you can't you can't just be going at it in the dark. Okay, God, instruct me.
Yeah,
Let me go on my high hill and figure out what you want me to do.
yeah. Well, go look at the Doctrine of Christ people. They say they're getting these revelations telling them what to do in their heart, but they're all arguing with each other, right? They're all contradicting each other, and that's not of God. That is Satan.
Yeah, I would expect,
or themselves.
I would expect that God would kind of have at least a very similar standard for everybody.
Everyone.
You think you'd be consistent, maybe?
Yeah.
No, that he might not be a respecter of persons, like he said he was.
Here, let's look at some quotes.
Wasn't mean
what it is,
Ben?
What?
Like you said that he wasn't, you mean?
Right, yeah.
No, you're good.
I'm getting tired.
So
hey, I'm digging a pit for you because of your words. That's all I'm doing. Don't worry
Yeah,
about it.
you know what I'm about to do? I'm about to shoot your phone.
okay. So
Whatever.
here's Joseph Smith. We can read the whole thing, and I've done before, but we'll just do the last part. How it might be asked, was it known to be a bad angel? By contradicting a former revelation. Here's a favorite one from 2 Nephi 29 that's talking about the coming forth of the Book of Mormon, right? Know you not that there are more nations than one? Okay, we obviously know that, but know you not that I, Yahweh, your Elohim, have created all men and have remembered those who are upon the isles of the sea, and that I rule in the heavens above the earth beneath, and bring forth my word unto the children of men, yea, upon all nations of the earth. Wherefore, murmur ye because ye shall receive more of my words? Know ye not that the testimony of two nations is a witness that I am Elohim? And so if they're stating different things, they wouldn't be supporting each other. And we'll get in that in a minute, right? That I remember one nation like unto another, like the same, right? Not differently, but wherefore I speak the same words unto one nation like unto another. Oh, wait a minute. Do we need to check the dictionary on same?
I think we need to redefine same, honestly.
Oh,
So that we can all have our same path, individual same path. Yeah.
Individual same path. That's
Yeah,
an oxymoron
absolutely.
if I ever heard one.
Yeah, I think we need to redefine same.
You're an
yeah,
oxymoron.
and when the two nations shall run together, they're running together because they're doing the same thing on the same path, right?
No, they're running together because they're at the same place on separate paths, and it's like
you know, I know it's being funny, but that's kind of what people say, right?
This is what I'm saying it kind of joking, but I'm serious.
Yeah, I know people say stuff like that. Go ahead, Andrew.
Everybody knows that there's 25 million straight and narrows, right?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. I think that sounds like the broad and wide, though. I think we need to get serious again.
Okay. And when the two nations shall run together, the testimony of the two nations shall run together also. And I do this that I may prove unto many that I am the same yesterday, today, and forever. Oh, wait. So if he's telling people different things that contradict each other, it wouldn't be saying I'm the same yesterday, today, and forever, right?
No.
That I speak forth my words according to my own pleasure. So he'll do it when he wants to. And because that I have spoken one word, ye need not suppose that I cannot speak another. For my Yahweh Elohim work is not yet finished. Look at this. Yahweh's work is not done.
Nor will it be.
So when he said on the cross, it is finished, he was stating the law of Moses is finished. Just like Paul stated, the law of Moses ended on the cross.
Nailed to the cross.
Right, because Yahweh's work is not finished. Neither shall it be until the end of man. I mean, okay, so I know Kessler's a woman, but I'm a man. I'm not ended yet. Ben's a man. Anyways, this is mankind, right? So I'm not
Right.
being silly, but
But but then again, it goes on even after that.
yeah, neither from that time henceforth forever. So is Yahweh's work done?
No.
No.
Yahweh's
thing
work
that was
is
finished
never.
on the cross was the law of Moses.
Yahweh's work is never done, and Torah defines his work.
Exactly. So, I mean, we can read some more if you want, but I mean, I think those are my
I'm
two favorite ones.
I'm starting to get tired.
Okay. All right. I'm gonna pause.
But
Do you want to say something before we pause, or
no.
Okay.
Let's